learn programming in a fun way, and that too the fastest growing language, which is Python. So here we are. Welcome to Telusko Learnings. My name is Davin Reddy, and in this series you will learn Python language from start to end. The only prerequisite here is your time, nothing else. If you have not done programming before, that's completely fine, because in this series we will start from scratch. So you will understand the language fundamentals, you will understand the syntax, and not just that, we will also focus on concepts. So this Python series will be fun to learn, and that too it is freely available, so you can learn the entire Python language for free. When you're learning something online, you may get bored or you may get distracted, but don't worry. In this series, I will try to make this session as much as interesting as possible. Maybe with the help of my presence, maybe with the help of animations and different stuff. Finally, we are starting with a series on Python or Python. It doesn't matter how you pronounce it. What matters is it is one of the fastest growing language. In what terms? In terms of number of developers who are using it, in terms of the number of libraries we have, in terms of number of companies who are using it, and in terms of the areas you can implement it. You talk about machine learning, you talk about GUI, software development, web development, you can use it everywhere. And that's why it is also called as a general purpose language. So in this video, we're going to talk about what is Python and why it is so useful and why you should learn it. So what is Python? As I mentioned, Python is a programming language, of course, but it is also an interpreted, object-oriented, and high-level language. Now, does it mean you cannot do procedures here? You can. It also supports procedure-oriented programming as well as object-oriented. It depends upon your purpose, right? You can use it the way you want. But why Python is so famous? We have C, C++, Java, JavaScript, and still Python is famous? Now, some people say that Python is a new language. Not exactly. Java came into picture in 1995 and Python came in 1989. So it's way before Java, right? Now, so when Java came into picture, the enterprise market, everyone started using Java. But then Python was there, it was there for other people to use. Example, let's say if you want to learn a language for the first time, Python was there. But now, since the advancement of machine learning, AI, this is a field where we have research scientists, they don't want to spend much time on learning programming language. So what they do, they went for the easiest language available, and the easiest language available in the market is Python. And yes, Python is damn easy. It is much simpler than C, C++, and Java. That's why most of the colleges and schools, they are teaching Python. You might be thinking, which company uses Python? Now let's just list those small companies who uses Python. We have Google, we have YouTube, we have Dropbox. So we can see we have all these companies who are using Python as a main language or as a support language. Example, let's say Google has so many features. Some of those features is coded in Python. Now in the same way, we have this one of the big website called as Reddit. Reddit is today written in Python. Now let's focus on this name Python. In fact, when you talk about C, C++, Java, these names, they have some story, right? What about Python? Is just because this language looks like a snake? Not exactly. The author of Python, he's a big fan of a British comedy movie called as Monty Python's Flying Circus. And that's why he went with a name called as Python initially, and then when everyone liked it, he went for the same name. Now, can we learn Python? And the answer is yes. It is one of the easiest languages to learn, and even if you are from a non-technical background, you have not written any code, you can start with Python. What if I say Python came into picture just to help those people who don't know how to write a code? In fact, children can learn Python. It's that easy. Now, Python has multiple versions. We have 1.x, we have 2.x, and we have 3.x. And of course, we should be learning 3.x, right? That means 2.x is not in the market. And the answer is no, the 2.x is still in the market. Because when 3.x came into picture, it was way different from 2.x. Normally what happens in programming language, when Java 8 came into picture, so it was backward compatible with Java 1.7. When Java 1.7 came into picture, it was backward compatible with 1.6. But that's not the case with Python, The two different versions has two different way of working. And that's why we have 2.x still running in the market. And it does have a support till 2020. So which one you should learn? Of course, 3.x, right? Because it is new and there will be a lot of features which you can work on. So that's the introduction from this video. Let's get started with the practical stuff now. Now, when you talk about a programming language, it doesn't matter which language you're working on, maybe C, C++, Java, or Python, you need to do one thing. You need to write a code. That's important, right? Now, where you will write the code and how will you make it work? The answer is very simple actually. If you want to write a code now, you simply need to open an editor where you write code, and we can use Notepad or Notepad++ or Atom or Sublime, doesn't matter which one you use. Let's open Notepad here. And here you will write a code. Now I know we don't know how to write a Python code. That's completely fine. Now, as we know, Python can be used in different, in different areas. One of them is scientific calculations. Now, when I say scientific calculation, it means you can also add two numbers. We have this huge range of areas where we can use it. We can use Python in machine learning, in AI, in software development, or we can use Python just to add two numbers. So we can say 2 plus 3. I want to know this answer. But in Notepad, you will not get it, right? Of course, this is a Python code. Trust me, this works in Python. But then 2 plus 3 will not work on Notepad. We need to make it run. As we know, Python is an interpreted language. You need to install an interpreter, which is a Python interpreter. Okay, do we have it? Let's verify. Do we have interpreter in Python in Windows by default? So if I press the home icon here, if I will search for Python. Okay, I do have a setup here, but then this is the installation which I have downloaded before. So in your machine, you will not be having this. Okay, so that's good. We don't have Python. Okay, assuming I'm using your machine. So what I will do is let's install Python. So what I will do is I will open my Chrome. So we are searching for Python download on Google, and this is what you got. Which one to choose? Example, let's say if you don't know how to use, if you don't know which website you want to go to, just go to Google and search for Python download, and that's what you get, right? Now we can use other setups as well. We don't have to go to actually official website. You can go to File Import to download, and there are different resources available. But it's best to go to official website, to make sure that the version which you're getting is correct. So we'll click here. The latest version is 3.7. Now you're lucky because this course started in July. The version came in June, I guess on June 27th, this version. So yes, you are, this is here. So it is June 27 which you got this version. So we will be using 3.7 here. And again, when you talk about new versions, you will get new features, or maybe some old features which are deprecated will be removed. So that's how it works, So we'll go for this version, which is download Python 3.7. Let's click on this. Now it will get downloaded in some time. So we'll install this. Yeah, so there's one more thing, when you talk about interpreter, you will get it. So you can run this code. So what we are expecting here is we want a Python interpreter, which will convert your code into a binary code. Now there's one more thing, when you work on real softwares, of course, right, when you learn Python, you want to work on real softwares. In that scenario, your project will be complex, of course, right? You will not be adding two numbers. You will not be printing hello world and all those stuff. You will be doing something big. Maybe you want to build your own Facebook. You want to build a calculator. You want to build a chat application, maybe something big. In that scenario, you will be using something called IDE, which stands for, so IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. What it means is, so this is a place where you write your code. This is where you will run it. This is where you can debug it. And that's very important, There should be an option of debugging, because in your project, of course, there will be a lot of bugs and you need to debug it. So it will help you in different ways. So it's better to use IDE when you work on a project. So we need two things. One is interpreter and second is IDE. Which IDE we should be referring? So there are various IDEs available in the market. One of my favorite is PyCharm. It's not that it is the best IDE available. It's just that it is developed by JetBrains. Now JetBrains is one of the best company who works on IDEs. Example, for Java we have IntelliJ. For Python we have PyCharm, and it provides you amazing features. So we'll be using PyCharm here. Now, is it free? That's the question. Let's try. So in fact, we have a Python downloaded here. Let's click on that. Let's install Python first. Now you can see when I click on this, you will get normal installation options. This is what you're doing from your childhood, right? So click on this and I will say, yes, I want to install Python 3.7 here. It will take some time. Let's wait for it. So here we go. It says setup was successful. That's great. It should work now. I will click on close and I guess Python will work now. But how do we verify that? Now the way you can verify that is by going to your Windows, of course, and saying, hey, I want to use Python. Now you can see we got a Python 3.7 setup. So either we can go with this one, or you already get an IDE called as IDLE, where you can also write your code, right? So let me open Python 3.7 here, and this is your basically a place where you can write a code. Now, normally when you talk about, this is in Windows, we call it as a prompt. In Linux, we call it as a shell. Here, what I will do is I will write a code just to verify if it is working, because that's very important, right? So in the notepad, we already have a code which is 2 plus 3. Let's do that same thing. So we'll say 2 plus 3. I hope it will work. I will say enter. Oh, it works. Can you see that? We got 5. So that's great. We got the output. But then we also want an IDE. We will not be writing a code in the IDE in this video, but then let's install that IDE as well. Type PyCharm, and you can see it belongs to JetBrains. Let's click on this one. Now, here's the thing. It has 2 versions. If you can see, so if I click on download, so you can see we have 2 versions here. One is professional version, second is community version. Professional version supports everything, it's a Python IDE, and it also supports web development. But that's not the case with community version. In community version, it will give you an IDE where you can type your Python code and some scientific development, but not web development. But if you want to use it, you need to pay some amount. Again, you can check it out. What's the pricing of it? Here we are to learn about Python. Let's click on download. Now this will download the community version. So once you got the setup, just click on that and it will give you this prompt. Welcome to PyCharm Community Edition setup. Let's click on next. It will ask you for the path. You can go for the default one and then click on next. Now it will give you an option of going for 32-bit launcher, 64-bit launcher. I will go for 64-bit launcher because the OS which I'm using is 64-bit. You can also have this application as the default setup for some types, some extension. You can see we have .py, which is the extension for Python files. And then I will click on next. Nothing specific here, click on install, and in some time it will get installed. So you can see we got this setup done, and if I click on run, again, we will not be writing a code here, but let's see how it looks like. So I would say do not import the setting, click on OK, and it will ask you for the theme. Okay, now some people are big fan of dark themes and some people are big fan of white theme. Now, as a developer, yes, we do prefer black because it eases your eyes, but as a content creator, white looks good in YouTube videos, So I will click this one and we'll say next. I don't want any of these extra features as of now. I will click on start using PyCharm. Let's see how it looks like. Oh, this is awesome. This looks good. You can click on new project and you can name a project which you want. I would say my project. Click on create. Okay, now every time you open this, it will give you these wonderful tips, but I don't need this. I will click on close. And this is where you can write your Python code now. Now we have talked about what is Python and we have talked about how to install Python on your machine. It's time to start with the actual stuff, right? And we are waiting for this. Now the step 1 would be, of course, you need to open your IDE. Now if you remember, in the installation we have installed 2 softwares. One is the interpreter and second is your PyCharm. But we'll not be using PyCharm in this tutorial. We'll start with the basics so that you will be having that hands-on experience on IDLE as well. So let's try it out. So what I will do is I will open my IDLE, and in that, so this is your prompt, okay? So this is your prompt. This is where you will type your code now. Before going for the actual code, we have a question here. Why do we code and why do we write a code? Now think about this. We are living in a world where everything is done with the help of computers, right? Example, if you want to send an SMS, if you want to send an email, you don't have to do that. Your computer will do it for you if you instruct it. Example, nowadays we have this amazing thing, we have Siri on iPhone and then we have Google Assistant on Android phones. You can ask them to do things for you. Example, you want to set an alarm, you can, they will do it for you. But then how they understand what you want to say? So you need to talk to a computer. And if you want to talk to a computer, you need to understand their language, right? And the language which computer understands is binary code, which is zeros and ones. Now that means if you want to talk to computer, you need to talk to them in terms of zeros and ones. Now it is not practically possible, right? Of course. So what you have to do is you need to use a language which both will understand. And of course, we all know English language, but computer will not understand plain English, right? Because we have some grammatical stuff here. So what we have done is we have created programming languages. Now those are not actually Example, we have high-level languages. Now, those are not exactly a binary code, and they're not even exactly same as English. They are somewhat, they have their own protocols, they have their own grammar, which we use. So when I say English, so we have level 1 English, then we have level 2, which is programming language, and then we have level 3, which is your binary format. So you understand English. So what you will do is you will learn a programming language, let's say Python in this case, and then you will write a Python code which will get converted into binary format, which a computer will understand. So if you say, hey computer, do something for me. So let's go with a very simple stuff here. Let's say I want to add 2 numbers. So you will say, hey computer, 2 plus 3. A computer will say, okay, 5. But then how will you talk to a computer in this case? So we are using Python, and then we have an interpreter. In fact, in Python, it's one of, as we discussed, it's one of the easiest language, right? So what I will do is I will say 2 plus 3. This is the simplest task you can do on Python. So I will say 2 plus 3. It works. You can see we got 5. Yay! So this is working. What else? What about subtraction? We love mathematics, right? So let's apply all the arithmetic operations here. Let's try 9 minus 8. It should be 1, and we got 1. So yes, subtraction also works. Okay, what else we can use? Can we use multiplication? Let's try 4 into 6. It should be 24. Yeah, that's right. We got the answer. So yes, addition, subtraction, multiplication works. What about division? Okay, let's try. So when I say division, it should be 8 divided by 4, and I'm expecting answer to be 2. Yeah, it's 2. But hold on, there is a difference here. You can see when we say 2 plus 3, we got 5. 9 minus 8, which is 1. So when you subtract 2 numbers, we are getting that number, right? And specifically, these are integer numbers, right? We all use integers. But then when you divide a number, it is giving you a point value. Now this point value is also called as float numbers. So we have integers and then we have float. Now float stands for floating point representation. Okay, but why it is 2.0? Because when you divide numbers, you might get point values, right? Example, when you say 5 divided by 2, you will get 2.5. Example, let's try it out. So if I say 5 divided by 2, you got 2.5, and you want that 0.5 value, right? That's why it converts your number or your output into a float value, because they want to give you the exact value. But what if you don't want it? What if you want only the quotient part? Example, when I say 5 divided by 2, you want only 2. You don't want 0.5 value. So we can do that. If you want only integer output, so we don't want float now, we want only integer, you can do that. You can say 5, instead of giving 1 slash, you have to give 2 slash. Now this is also called as integer division, or it is also called as float division. So when I say run this code, you got 2. So this is working, yeah. Okay, what else we can do here? Can I do combination of this arithmetic operation? Example, let's say 8 plus 9, yeah, and then subtract it by let's say 10. Is it possible? And let's try. So it works, So you can have multiple operations, but then we have to follow grammar, right? If you say 8 plus 9 and then subtract, you forgot to type 10 there, it will give you an error, which is invalid syntax, and that's why you need to follow the grammar as well. So when you learn a language, you need to follow grammars. In the same way, in programming as well, you have to follow grammar. Can I use those bracket stuff which we used to use in mathematics? Yes, we can. So example, let's say we have 8, and then I'm adding that value, but then I also have a value which is 2 into 3. Now, which one will be done first? Of course, the multiplication part, right? But then what if you want to do it? Oh, let's try this first. So you can see we got 14, which is 8 plus 6. But what if I want to say 8 plus 2, which is 10, and then 3? So in that case, you need to use brackets, right? If you remember the BODMAS rule. So I will say 8 plus 2, which is in the brackets, and then into 3. So you can see we got 30. So yes, this also works. So when you multiply, so if you give a bracket, it will be solved first. Okay, this is cool, right? Now what else we can do here? What if I want to find a power of, or you can say exponent? So let's say if you have 2 raised to 3 or 5 raised to 6. How can I do that? So I will say 2, I want to find cube of 2. So in that case, I can say 2 into 2 into 2. Yeah, we can do that. But then what if you have 2 raised to 10? You cannot simply type 2 into 2 into 2 in 10 times, right? Because this will give the right answer, which is 8. Otherwise, you can say 2, you can give double star and 3. So double star or double asterisk symbol simply means power of. So when you say 2 raised to 3, so this is 2 asterisk 3. And you can see we got 8. So that's how you have to do all this operation. So now we know how to add 2 numbers, how to subtract 2 numbers, and then multiplication, division, float division. What else we can do here? In fact, we can also do modulus. Now what is modulus here? Let's say I'm dividing 2 numbers, which is 10 divided by 2 or maybe 3 in this case. Now it's a 10 divided by 3, it will give you 3, right? But then we also have a remainder here which is 1. So when I say 10 divided by, which is the integer division, you got 3, that's right. But what if I want the remainder part of it? So I would say 10, and we have to use a special symbol here which is modulus, and we'll say 3. You can see we got 1, which is a remainder. So when you say 10 mod 3, you will get a remainder which is 1. Okay, this works, yay. Now you know all the operators, right? Now what else we can do here? Now till this point we have discussed about, we have discussed about two types. One is the integer type, which we have done here, and then we have talked about float. What other types we can have here? Can we have string? You know what a string means? It's a combination of characters. Example, my name Naveen is a string, Python is a string, camera is a string, YouTube is a string, right? So we have to use, can we use string here? We can, let's try. So what I will do is, whenever you want to use string, you should always use single quote or double quote. So let's try. So I will use my name first. So I will say single quote and Naveen. So we have to use a quotes here. So you have to say Naveen and enter. You can see we got the same value. Naveen, we got Naveen. Now there's another way of printing these values. You can also print by providing some functions. Oh, that's a new word now. Now what are functions? In Python language, we have certain functions which we can use. And one of the function is print. Now what print means, or what function means, is it is a set of tasks which you will be doing. So example, in print, which is inbuilt, it has certain tasks which it will do. You just need to call it. Can we define our own functions? Yes, we can. So print is an inbuilt function. We can define our own functions as well. So you can do all these operations in one function. You can do that. We'll see that later. How do we define our own function? But time being, let's use print. And whenever you have a print, you normally give this round brackets to pass any parameter. Let's say if you want to pass something to the function, you can do it here. In this case, I want to pass my own name. So I'm saying print Naveen. So you can see it works. We got Naveen as a value there. Okay, that works. Now, if you see the difference between Naveen, the earlier command here, if you compare this one with this one, see the output. So in the earlier one, the single quote is getting printed as well, but in the second one, it is only printing my name, and that looks beautiful, Okay, let's try to print something else. I will say print, and here I want to print, let's say, Naveen's laptop. So Naveen's laptop. It should print Naveen's laptop, right? When I say enter, oh, we got an error. That's weird. Now, what went wrong here? Now, if you observe here, we have single quote as a starting one, and then we also have a single quote here. So that means that is one string. And then this thing, which is S laptop, it is not as a part of that single quote. That's where the problem starts. So you cannot simply have single quote anywhere, right? So how do you solve this problem? To solve this problem, we have two solutions. The first one is, instead of using single quote, you can use double quotes. Example, you can say print, and in double quotes, you can say Naveen's laptop. Now so starting and ending is done with the help of double quotes, you don't have to worry about the single quote in between. And if I say enter, and you can see we got the output as Naveen's laptop. Now what other commands we can do? So this thing works here. Okay, let me think about this. What if I want to print double quotes in a statement? Let's say we have print, inside double quotes I am saying Naveen laptop, but I want to print laptop in double quotes. Can I do that? Example, the output should be Naveen and laptop, but then the laptop should be in double quotes. We cannot do that because the first double quotes and second double quotes will be getting ended here. So this is my first string. What about this laptop? Now in that case, we will be using single quote. So single quote and end with single quote. So you have to make sure the string part should be different from the parts which are inside. So if inside we have double quotes, then outside we should be using single quote, right? That makes sense, right? So you can see we got the output. But here's a trick. What if I have both in the string? Example, let's say we have print. I want to say Naveen's laptop. And you can see we have both now. We have double quotes and we have single quote both. That's where the problem starts. So what you will do now? Because if I say enter, you got invalid syntax. In that case, we will say single quote Naveen's, and then in double quotes we'll say laptop. The issue is with this S, right? This S is coming before a single quote. So we have to tell your Python, hey Python, can you just skip that special meaning of that single quote? And the way you do that is by giving a slash. So when you say backslash, it will make sure that it will ignore the special meaning of that single quote. So when I say enter, it works, you know. So these are the basic fundamentals which we're talking about. Now let's do some fun here. So again, we'll continue with the print later, but we have some fun thing here. What if you want to print Naveen 2 times, or you want to print Naveen 3 times? Can I do that? Of course you can, right? You can type Naveen and then Naveen again, or you can also use a plus character here. So if you want to concatenate 2 strings, so we have 2 strings here, right? We have Naveen and we have Naveen. So when I say enter, so you can see we have Naveen and Naveen, so we are combining it. What if I want to print Naveen 3 times or 10 times? In that case, you know, you can play with numbers as well. So you can say 10 into, in single quote, you can say Naveen and say enter, you can see we got Naveen 10 times, yeah? So Python is fun actually, you know, you can play with it, you can do some experiment. That's amazing. What if I want to print this one? You tell me, okay, you try to guess it, will it work or not? Just pause the video, guess it, let me know in the comment section if it will work or not, and then we can continue. What I will do is I will print something. I would say C:/ I have a directory called docs/Naveen. So pause the video, think about it, and let's see what output you're giving. Let's try and say enter. Oh, this is weird. We were expecting it will print C:/docs/Naveen, but unfortunately it is giving a new line and then Avin. What's wrong? Now /n has a special meaning in Python. What is that special meaning? And the meaning is, it means new line. So /n means new line. And that's what is happening here. It is printing C:/docs, and then it comes to a new line because of /n. It is saying Avin. Okay, what I want to do is I want to print it as it is. How do I do that? It's very simple. You just need to cancel the special meaning of that thing, right? So you want to print this string as it is, which is also called as raw string. So I want to print this one as a raw string. In that case, you just specify R before the thing, and you will say C:/docs/Naveen. So we are printing this stuff as it is. So when you say R, it means raw string. Don't try to convert it. That's what you are saying to Python. Hey, don't try to convert that /n into a new special character. And say enter. Now in this video, we're going to talk about what is variable. But first of all, why do we need one? Let's try something here. So what I will do is I will go back to my previous example. You know, we were adding 2 and 3, so we have done with that, right? We are saying 2 + 3. Now if you remember in maths, what we do is of course we work with numbers, but then the moment you start with algebra, you have this concept of using x and y. So what we do is we say let x is equal to 5. Can we do that here? So we have x equal to 2. So I'm storing this value 2 in a variable called as x, and that's a new word now. What is variable? So basically variable is a container where you can put your values. Example, we are storing 2 here in a container, and the name of that container is x. Of course, you can give any name, doesn't matter. You can say ABC, you can say a box, you can give any name, right? So we can say x equal to 2, and the moment I say enter, now this is the first time when you said enter and you have not got any output, right? So in the earlier prompts, what we did is when we said any operation, it was giving you some output. Here, we have not got any output. It's just an assignment operation. So in assignment, what we do is we have a variable name equal to a value. So we are assigning 2 to x. Okay, that works. So can I do this now? Can I say x + 3? Yes, right? Because in x we have a value which is 2. Oh, it works. You can see we got 5. That works. Can I store 3 as well? Let's try. So I will say y is equal to 3. Now we have 2 variables, x and y. So we have 2 boxes. And now I will say x + y. Oh, it works, right? It works. So we can say x has 2, y has 3, and we are adding them. Okay, so that's why we can use them. But then why they are called as variables? Now, normally when you say variable, this term simply means you can change the value. Can we change here? Can I say x equal to 9? Can I change the value from 2 to 9? Let's try. And the moment I say enter, oh, it works. There was no error. But now if I try to do this, if I say x + y, x will have a value which is 2 or 9. That's a question because we are changing it, but there's no error. Enter. Oh, you got 12. That means the value of x now is 9. Okay, so we can change the value, and now we can justify that word as variables, right? So what is variable? It's a box where you can have a value. Now, do we need to define the type of the variable? You don't need to. So the moment I assign a value, it automatically detects what type of value you are assigning. So in this case, it is integer. Now let me just do this thing. What if I say x and if I say enter, what it will do? So the moment you say x and enter, it will print the value of x, in this case which is 9, right? What if I use a variable ABC? Now of course we have not defined this variable, right? And we are still trying to use it. The moment I say enter, you got an error. The error is, it says name error, name ABC is not defined, and that's why we have not defined ABC yet. So if you are using a variable which is not defined, so it will of course give you an error. Now I will do one more thing. I will say x plus 10, so of course it will give you 19. Now what if I want to add 19 with y? I mean something in this way. I would say 19 plus y. But then if you think about this 19, this is the output of the previous operation, right? Now if you want to use the output of the previous operation, we can use underscore. So underscore represents the output of the previous operation. And if I say enter, you can see we got 22. So it is 19 plus 3, which is 22. So even this works, right? So this is amazing, you know, there are so many things you can work with this. So we can use variables for numbers, right? So we can use it for float or integer. What about string? Can I use variables with string or a string variable? Let's try. So I will create a variable as name, and I will use a name as YouTube. And if I say enter, oh, it works. And if I print name, we got YouTube, so it is perfectly working. So we can use string as well. So example, I can say name plus YouTube rocks. So you can see we got YouTube rocks. So it is name, which is YouTube plus rocks. Okay, even this work, that's perfectly fine. In fact, let me just do an experiment. Can I say name and space rocks? Okay, this is not working. So we have to make sure that you put plus there, because if you have plus, then only it will try to interpret that. Now there's one thing which is very fancy here, you know. So when you talk about YouTube, it's a string, right? And it's a combination of characters. That means if I want to fetch one character, we should be able to do that, right? And yes, we can do that. So if I say name, and if I want to fetch one character, how will I do that? So let's say if I have a YouTube here, and YouTube has 7 letters or 7 characters. When you break it down, it will create an array, or you can say collection of characters. The numbering starts with 0, because normally in computers, numbering always starts with 0. So here, if you want to fetch it, we have to use a square bracket, and you have to mention 0. So we are specifying, hey, I want to fetch the first letter of name. So in this case, it is Y. How it works? So now I will fetch the last one, which is 6, which is E in this case. Yeah, we got E, that works. Now I will fetch, let's say 8. See, we don't have 9 characters, right? We only have 7 characters. So the first one is 0, the last one is 6. How about 8? The moment you do that, it will give you an error. It says, index error, string index out of range. So of course you are going out of your limit, right? So you cannot do that. Okay, can I use negative numbers? Let's try. I will use -1. So I want your guess here. What you think what it will do? Come on, think about it. Okay, so let me just enter it and let's see what happens. So when I say enter, you got E. Okay, so the answer is, when you say minus number, it will start from right to left. Okay, so it will start with the ending, so which is E in this case. That means if I say -2, it will give you the second last letter, which is B. That's right. And if I say -7, which will be the first one, right, which is Y. Oh, it works. It goes in a reverse order now. Now what if I want to print 2 characters, not 1, 2? So let's say I want to print Y and O. So in this case, I will say name, and I will start with 0. Of course, we want to print 0, the first character and the second character, right? That means we will give 2. Now this 2 doesn't mean number of characters, it means the ending. So I want to start with 0 and 1. So first 2 characters. And you can see we got Y0. The same thing if I do it for 1:4. So come on, guess. So 1 means second character, right? So it will start with O and it will end at 3, because you cannot include 4. So it is exclusive of 4. So it is 1, which is O, U, and T. Oh, it works. We got out. Yeah, so out. It works. Now, what if I specify only 1 and colon? If I don't specify the ending, what happens? In this case, it will start with 1 and it will go till the end. Okay, that's how it works. So if you don't specify the ending part, it will go in that way. What if I specify the ending part but not the starting point? Example, if I say, if I keep it blank and after colon, I will say 4. Now in this case, it will start with the first letter and it will end at 3, which is before 4. And that's why you got Y-O-U-T. So this is fun, right? Okay, what else we can do here? What if I specify name and I will give wrong values. I will say 3 colon 10. Of course, we don't have 10 characters, right? Now, in this case, it will end at the last one, which is available. So it will not give you any error in this at this case. You can see we got T-U-B-E, tube. Starts with T and then it's end at E because we don't have any other characters. So if you want to avoid errors, this is one way. Okay. Now, can I change the letter? Example, I don't want it to be YouTube. I want it to be my tube. So I will say name from 0 to 3. I want to change this with my. Can I do that? So I'm changing YOU to my. The moment I say enter, you got an error. It says string object does not support item assignment. So the thing is, once you assign the value, you cannot change it. Not even for one character. If I say 0, I want to change the first character to raw tube. Even this will not work. You can see we got the error. So you cannot change the value. That means strings in Python is immutable. You cannot change the value of it. That's awesome, right? But then that doesn't mean you cannot change while printing. Example, if I want to print my tube, you can do that. So first I will print my, and then I will give a space and then plus. I want to print tube, right? So in that case, I will say 3 colon 6. Or maybe the ending part, doesn't matter. So you can see we got my tube. If you don't want space, you can do that. You can say my, and then without space, you can type it tube. So this works, yeah? So this is how you work with string. You work with variables, right? You can have a number of variables, you can have a float variables, and you can have a string variable as well. In fact, with string, we have one more thing. Let's say if you define a string, which is, let's say, my name as a variable, and my name here is Naveen Reddy, and if I want to know the length of my name, we can do that. So we have a len function, and we can pass my name. As I mentioned, there are some inbuilt functions available in Python, and one of them is len. So you can see we got 11 characters. So yeah, that's it. That's it from this video where we have talked about different variables, assignments, and stuff. So we have done with the basic thing, right? We have installed the softwares and we have done some operations and worked with variables. In this video, we'll work with a concept called as list. Now, to understand this, what I will do is I will open my IDL as usual. What I want to do here is we want to work with list, right? Now, what is list? Now, let's imagine you have different values, and let's say you have numbers and you have strings. Now, if you want to group them together, now if you have worked on arrays in any other language, C, C++, or Java, we have the same or similar stuff in here, which is a list. Now, how do we use list? It's very simple actually. Let's say I have some nums. Okay, so we have this variable called nums equal to, and now we can assign the values. Now, instead of assigning one value, we can assign multiple values. Now there's a question, how will I assign multiple values? So let's say 25, 12. Now in this case, we need to use a special symbol or special character which is called square bracket. So we have to use square brackets here, and in this square bracket, you have to mention the values. Okay, now which one? Any value doesn't matter. So I will say 25, 12, maybe 36, maybe 95, 14. So I got these values. Now these are the list of values which I have here. Now you might be thinking, can we only have similar type of data? Example, all these things are numbers, right? Well, let's try that as well. So I will say enter here. Can I print it? We can. So simply type nums and you got the value. You can see we got 25, 12, 36, 95, and 14. That's so simple. Now, if you remember, in the last session, we have also talked about string, and we said, okay, string is a collection of characters, and we can pick up individual character with the help of index value, right? Can we do it here? And the answer is yes. Example, let's say I want to pick up the first value, which is 25 in this case. You know the answer, right? So we simply have to say nums and 0, enter. Oh, it worked. You can see we got 25. Let's say I want to fetch the last value, which is nums of, it should be 5, right? So, 4, because the size of the list is 5. Typos, doesn't matter. So if I say enter, you can see we got 14. So it's working, we got 14 as well. Okay, so we got 25, we got 14, so first and last is working. In fact, not just first and last, you can pick up any value, right? What if you want to print something in between and then till the end? Now, if you remember, in string as also we have done that. So example, I want to print third element, fourth and fifth. So third and then to the end. So of course we can do that. We can start with 2, which is third element, and we can give a colon, and there's no end limit, right? So if I say enter, you got the third element, fourth and fifth. Now, what do you think? Can we use negative numbers the way we have done before? The index number as -1, -1, -2, -3. Yes, it works here as well. So we can say nums of, so if you want to pick up that 14 which is at the end, you're right, we have to use -1 and it works. If you want to fetch the first element, we have to say -5, right? That's what we have done before. So yes, we can use negative range as well. Okay, how about having a string or another array here or another list here? We'll say nums, we'll say names and names of. So what names? So I can have any names here, right? I can have Naveen, I can have Kiran, and I can have, let's say, John. So we got these 3 names here, right? And the moment I say enter, you can see we also have a list of string. And if I print names, you got the names there. Okay, so now if you can see one array which is numbers, we have second array which is names, which is of string. We can create different list of different types. Now, can I create a list of different types? I mean, one list of different types. I will simply call it as values equal to, and I want to have any type of value here. Example, the first one I would say is 9.5, which is a float value. Then I want to go for a string. I will go with my name. And then let's say another one which is 25, which is a number, right? So we have a float number, we have a string and an integer number. If I say enter, it works. Okay, so we can have a list with different type of data, and that's the beauty about list. You can have different data, and that's not the case with other languages, right? In C, C++, Java, what we do is when we create an array, it has to be of same type. Yes, in Java we have the object array, but okay, let's not discuss that here. If you're only thinking about Python, this is we have. So we have a list where you can have different types. Can we have 2 lists working together? I mean, something like this. I want to get another list here. Mil is equal to miscellaneous things. So I will say mil is equal to, I want to have a list of list. Can we do that? Let's try. So I want to have this list which will have nums and which will also have names. So a mil will have names and nums and names. Enter. There is no error. Okay. I will say mil. Okay, you can see we got a list, and inside that list we have 2 different lists. One is of numbers and one is of string. Okay, that works. So the amazing thing about list is we can perform certain operations because it has certain methods to use, right? Or you can call them functions. Now, how do we know that? So what I will do is I will say nums dot. The moment you say nums dot, of course we have not got, oh, we got the pop-up there. Can you see that? Now you can see we got append, we got clear, we got copy, count, extend, index. We can use all these functions. Let's try. Now another thing about list is it is mutable. Oh, what is that? Mutable simply means you can change the values, and we can do that here. Nums dot append. I want to append. What I want to append, let's say I want to append 45. And now if I say nums, you can see we got 25, 12, and then at the end we got 45. So we can append it. What else we have? So if the pop-up is not coming instantly, you can simply say control space. Okay, so we got clear as well. So clear will clear the entire list for you. Try it out. Once you are watching this video, try it on your machine, different operations. So we have inserted, right? Or we can also use insert. Now, difference between append and insert. In append, it will append at the end. In insert, it will add in between. Let's try. So in insert, what we do is we specify the index value as well. So I can say index value 2, comma, I want to specify there, let's say, any value, let's say it's 77. I will say enter. And now if I print nums, you can see we got 77 at index number 2. Now what if you want to remove the element? Even that is possible. You can say nums dot, there's a method called as remove, and in remove you can pass the element which you want to delete. I will say I want to delete 14, enter, and if I say nums, you can see in the list we don't have 14 now. What if you want to use index number? Oh, we have not done that, right? Because when you pass 14, that's a value. So if you want to delete based on the index number, even that is simple. You just need to use a method called as pop. So you have to say nums.pop. Inside this pop, you just pass the index number. Which I want to delete? Let's say I want to delete 12. So in this case, I will pass 1. And you can see we got 12 out. How do I verify? If I say nums, you can see we don't have 12 now. Okay, in fact, we can also use pop without an index value. What happens when you use pop without index value? Now, if you have learned data structures before, we have a concept of stack, which is last in, first out, which simply means we have these 2 methods there, which is push and pop. So push is pushing the elements in the stack. Pop is removing the element. And when you say pop, it will remove the last element which is added. So in this case, the last element which is added is 45, which is at the last. I will say enter. You can see we got 45. So if you don't specify the index value, you got the last element. So you can use this when you implement stack in data structures. Yeah. Okay, so we can use remove, we can use pop. In fact, we have another method. If you want to delete multiple values, not one, multiple values, how will you do that? So in this case, you will use del. So del is again a command, and then you have to pass the name of the list, which is nums, And in the array, you have to specify the index value from where you have to start. I want to start from, let's say, 2, and then I want to end it. I want to delete all the remaining elements, so I will say enter. And if I verify now, you can see we got only 2 values, the 0th and 1st, because from 2, everything is deleted. So that's how you can work with nums. Now let me just add some values there. Oh, how to add multiple values now? Because I want to add multiple values, right? Not one. In that case, you can use another method which is called as extend. Again, you need to read documentation for this. So there's one question from everyone, from where to learn or from where to read. Of course, you're watching this video, but reading is also important, right? What if I say Python has this amazing documentation online? So you just need to go to online and search for Python docs. You will get the documents. In fact, in the next video, we are going to talk about how to use the help command, which is very useful actually. So we'll see that. So if you want to add multiple values, just type nums.extend, and in the bracket, specify multiple values if you want. Example, I want to add 29, 12 again, 14, 36. I want to add these 4 values. Simply say enter. We have done a mistake. Okay, I guess we have to give a square bracket as well. Oh, so that was a mistake. We have to put that value in square bracket. My bad. And if I say nums, you can see we got the value. So we got a list now. Now with this list, we can perform some inbuilt functions. In Python, we have these inbuilt functions. Now, how do I know that which inbuilt function we have? Min, we have max, we can find sum. So we have those methods here. So let's try. So can we use inbuilt functions? Let's try. So I will say min. I want to find the minimum element. So I would say min of the collection, the list which is nums. And if I say enter, you can see we got 12. 12 is the minimum value. The same thing you can do with max. In max, you can pass nums. You got 77. And we can also say sum. Find the sum of all the values, and it's 193, right? So normally you do all those things by yourself, right? If you're doing programming, this is one thing you have to do by yourself using some loop and those concepts. But Python says, hey, don't worry, I have some methods for you. In fact, I forgot to mention one more thing. In nums, we have one more method which is called a sort. So when you say sort, and if I say nums, you can see we got all the values in sorted format. So yes, list is amazing. It provides you so many features, right? So that's about list we have. So now we know we can have multiple values in a list, and those things can be of different format. And if you want to access any of this element, you have to use index values. It's mutable, so you can change the values, you can add values, you can remove values, and you can use certain methods like extend, sort to do exciting things. We were supposed to complete tuples and set, but unfortunately it was a lengthy video, so let's complete those things in this video. So when we learned about list, it's very simple, right? We have a list of values. Now this list can be of different type. It can be of type integer or a string or float. Now we have another type which is called as tuple. Now what is tuple? So tuple is almost same as list. We can have a collection of value there. The difference is in list we can change value because list is mutable. And tuple, you guessed it right, is immutable. That means you cannot change the value. Okay, but where it can be used, that's a different thing, So let's try it out. First, let's create a tuple. So we'll say tup equal to, and the way you create a tuple is, we can use some brackets, right? In list, we used to use a square bracket and we used to specify values. There's a thing here. When we use a square bracket, see nowhere we are mentioning that we are going to use list, right? So by default, this square bracket means list. How do we use tuple? Because we cannot use square bracket now. So we have to use a round bracket. So round bracket defines it's a tuple. 21, 36, 14, 25. Now, once you specify these values here, you cannot change it. So we got our tuple. If I say enter, you can see we got 21, 30, 36, 14, and 25. Now let's try to change the value. Let's try it. So I will say tup. Can I use a square bracket? First, let me fetch the values. So I will say 1. Enter. Oh, it works. Okay, so when you want to fetch values, we can use square bracket. Okay, let's try to change the values. I will say tup of 1 is equal to, I want to change from 36 to 33. I will say enter. You can see we got an error. It says tuple object does not support item assignment. That means you cannot basically change the value. Can we use certain methods which we had in list? Let's try. So if I say tup dot control space, you can see we have only 2 methods. One is count and second is index. Okay, if you're getting confused, what is count? Count was there in list as well. So count will count the number of occurrence of a number. Example, let's say if in your tuple, you have 10 values, and out of which you have some values like 5, which is repeated 2 times. So if you say 5, it will give you answer 2. And you can fetch the index value for a particular element. but you don't have any method which will replace the value, which will append the value. You can see you don't have those things here. Tuple is like list, but then you cannot change the value of it. Now, when you should be using tuple? So when you know that you have a list and you don't want to change the values of it, and yes, in certain projects we have this requirement. You want a set of values and you don't want to change it. So of course you will go for tuple there. Since we don't change the values in tuple, so iteration in tuples is faster than in list. So that's where you can use tuple if you want to enhance the speed of your execution. So that's about tuple. Now it's time to look at set. So what is set? Now, if you remember the mathematical definition of set, it is simply a collection of elements. It is a collection of unique elements, okay? So let's try. So I will say set, I will say yes, S equal to, how do I define set? Because the square bracket is for list, round bracket is for tuple, we are remaining with only one bracket now, which is curly bracket. So curly bracket is for set. In fact, in maths as well, I guess we use curly brackets. So now I will say 22, 25, 14, 21, let's say 5. So I got these values here. Now these are random values, no specific sequence, so these are not sorted. Now there's one more thing with set, If first of all I will say enter, you can see we got a set. I will not be printing it now, so let's talk about the concept here. Now set never follows a sequence, okay? So it will not follow the sequence in which you have added those elements. Now if you think if I type S and if I say enter, you will get the same values. Yes, you will get the same values, but not in a same sequence. Okay, that's important here. Let's say enter. You can see the values. We got 5, 14, 21, 22, and 25. I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking this is sorted. No, not exactly. Let me just try once again. I will say S equal to, again a curly brackets, and then 25, 14, 98, 63. Okay, I'm going for random values. Okay, I don't have these values in my mind. I'm just looking at my keyboard and just hitting those numbers. And I will also try to repeat some values here, because last time I forgot to repeat the value. This time I will do it. Let me repeat 98. Yeah. Now if I say enter, and if I print the value of S, look at the sequence. First of all, we got 98 only once. And second, look at the sequence. There is no ascending or descending order. It is random values. So you cannot be sure with the sequence in set. The reason is set uses a concept of hash, and using hash we improve the performance. We want to fetch the element as fast as possible. So it simply says, okay, just go with the flow. So we want speed than sequence here. But yes, if you want to make a sequence, you can just do certain things like sorting elements and all those stuff. But here, set will not follow the sequence. Now, can we change the value of set? Let's try. Okay, first of all, can we use index number here? If I say 2, you can see in set indexing is not supported. You know why? Because we don't have proper sequence, right? What you will do with the indexing? So yes, in set we cannot do that. Can we change the value? That's an issue, right? So if you say s dot, you can see a method called as add, using which you can add the value. And then what else we can use? We can use pop, we can use remove. So this thing works in set, so you can try it out, you can do some experiment and it should work. So that's how we use set. So we have tuple and we have set. So let me just go for a quick recap. So we have a list. List is like a collection of values. Now this can be of different type or of same type, doesn't matter. And we have a concept where we can add values, we can remove values, we can update values. Can we? Yes, we can. So then we have tuples, where tuples is same as list. The difference would be in tuples you cannot change the values because they are immutable. And then we have set. Now set is almost same as list. The difference would be it will not maintain the sequence and it will not support duplicate values. So that's important, right? So that's list, tuple, and set for you. In fact, till this point we have seen basic stuff, right? But now we have a question, till this point we are using IDLE as our IDE. But what if you want to use command prompt? Normally when you work with shell or command prompt, you want to access Python on the command prompt. How do I do that? Let me just try. So if I open my command prompt, if I say cmd enter, and now if I type a command, let me just try. So command is Python. In Python we have certain libraries which we'll be using later. So Python supports certain libraries which we can use to make our project efficient. So to access those libraries, we need the command, right? So here, if I say Python, if I say enter, oh, it says Python is not recognized. That's weird. That's bad about this, right? How will I make it work? Now, what's wrong here? The thing is we have installed Python, right? What is wrong? The thing is, you have installed Python in your C drive somewhere, okay? And CMD is not able to get the path of it. Okay, so if CMD is not able to get the path of it, that means you need to specify that by yourself. There are multiple ways of doing this. One is by saying set path. This is a command which you have to use equal to, and you have to specify the path here. But this is a temporary setting, you know, because the moment you close your command prompt and reopen it, you will lose the path. If you want to make it permanent, what you will do is you will go to your C drive, and here you will right click on the screen and you have to say properties. Click on advanced system setting, go to environment variables. Again, you can directly go from the start menu itself. You just type environment variables, you will get it. And here you have to set the path. But where I will change the system variables. And if I double click on this path, you can see we got the prompt here. And in this prompt, you need to add the path. But which path? I don't know. Let's open our My Computer and go to C drive. So in C drive, go to users and then your folder. So first of all, you need to go here. So in C drive, users, whatever username you have, and then app data. Inside this, if you click on local, and then you have to go to programs, Python, and then this one. So when you open your My Computer, you have to go to this part, so which is visible there. And depending upon your username, it might change. Depending upon the version which you are using, it will change. But then this is one of the paths we have to use. So I will copy this path, go back to the environment variables, and click on new, paste. So we have done with the first path. But we have to specify two paths here. The first one is that which I have mentioned, and then script as well. So this one as well. So copy it and go back, say add, paste, and okay. So by doing this, you are setting the path now. Okay, once you have done that, close everything, go back to your command prompt. If you try now typing Python, it will not work. You need to make sure that you restart your command prompt. I'll close this, type CMD. Now let's try typing Python. And it works. You can see we got a Python prompt here. Let's verify. 2 plus 3, always say enter, you got 5. It's working, you know. Okay, everything is working, everything is fine. In fact, you know, the best way to check Python is by using print, hello world, print and hello world, say enter, it works, right? Python is working. So this is how you set the path if you want to access Python in your machine. Okay, that's great. Now, once you have talked about this, we have another thing to talk about is help. Now, you know, when I was learning C for the first time, it's way back, and at that time when I wanted to explore C programming, because in books as well you will get limited knowledge, and in lectures as well you will get limited knowledge. If you want to enhance your skills, what I used to do is, in Turbo C++, we used to have this help option where you will see all the header files and you can see what is happening in that. In the same way, in your Python as well, we have help option. If you want to access that thing, it's very simple. Just type help and give a round bracket and say enter. It will open a help prompt for you. Okay, now what help you need? Now basically Python has certain modules you can explore, but how do we know which module it has? Okay, even I don't know. So what I will do is I will type topics. In fact, if you see the docs there, it says search for topics. In fact, you can also search for something which we have used till now and say enter. You can see we got list of modules available or topics available. Okay, which one you want to know about? Let's say I want to know about list, because we have seen that, right? So I will type list. Okay, this thing tells everything about list now. So if you scroll down, we have some methods here which we have used, if you remember. So these are the methods which we can use, you know. So it talks about everything. So which version has included which things. And this is amazing, you know. Instead of buying a book, instead of course you should be watching my videos, and then with my videos you can read the documentations, right? It will be very helpful. So this is about list. Okay, now how do you go back to your command prompt? How do you go to back to the prompt? You simply say quit, enter. You're back now. And let's say if you want to find help on a specific topic, you know about the topic. So you will simply say help, and in single quote you will specify list. You don't have to go to help and then search. You can do it from here as well if you know the command, and you can see we got the information about list. So that's how you can explore different topics, and you can read. Reading is very important, you know. So that's about this video where we have talked about how to set a path and how to explore the help option. And in this video, we're going to talk about variable. But hold on, we have talked about variables, right? We know how to create variables, how to assign values, and we can change the value as well. Then why again the next video? Now in this video, we'll talk a bit in a different way, you know. We'll talk more about memory consumption and what happens when you create multiple variables. So let's get started, you know. In the flow itself, we'll talk about what concept we'll discuss. So we have our editor ready and let's get started. So let's start with some questions, So I will ask you a question, you have to answer maybe in your mind or in the comment section, your choice. So what I will do here is let me create a small variable. I will say the variable name is num and the value for num is equal to 5. Now what do you think? What is happening behind the scene? Okay, just imagine. So there will be, so in your memory or in your internal memory of your system, you might be getting a box there with the name num and it will be having its own address, right? And in that box you will be having a value which is 5. So we got a box, in that we have value 5 and it will be having a name and the address. Okay, that's good. So name is num and address is something. Let's see what is the address. Hey, how do you know what is the address? Now, of course, every variable will be having some address, right? If you want to get the address, what you will do is you will use a function name called as id, and then in the bracket you have to pass the variable name which is num. So in this case, if I pass num, you can see we got the address. Oh, that's great. So we got, this is our address. Now this is possible with any type of variable, okay? You can go with string as well. Let's try. So I will use a name equal to, so let's say my name, I would say Naveen. And again the same thing, I will use an ID and in this I will pass name. And you can see we got address. Now for num we have a different address, for ID we have a different, for name we have a different address. That's great. Okay, now think about this. What if I create one more variable? Let's go with a different variable now. I will say variable a and the value for a is, let's say 10, okay? So we have 10 and then we have variable b and b is equal to a. Now can I assign a to b? Yes, the answer is yes. You can assign the value of a to b. Now what do you think what is happening behind the scenes? So how many variables we have? How many boxes we have? Think about this. We should be having two boxes, right? One for a and one for b, right? So two boxes. Each box will have a value which is 10 and they might be having different address, right? Of course, if you have a different box, you will be having a different address. Let's verify. So first I will verify the values of it. So I will type a, we got 10. I will type b, we got 10. So both have the same value. Okay, I will try to fetch the address of a. Okay, we got the address, doesn't matter what is the address here, some weird number. And I will try to get the address of b. Oh, that's weird, we got the same address. So in Python, what happens is whenever you create multiple variables and in case if they have the same data, they both will point to the same box. They will not be getting multiple boxes for each variable. And that's where Python is more memory efficient, right? Because you're not getting multiple data here. That's great. So what happens when I change the, let's see the ID of 10, okay? We can also do that because everything which you are using here, it is also called as object. So in this case, we have 10, which is an object, name is an object, 5 is an object. I know you're thinking about objects now. Don't worry, we'll talk about objects later in detail. You can till that point, you can imagine object is a box, okay? So it is something where you can hold your data, somewhat like variable, but we'll discuss that in detail later. At this point, everything is an object, right? 10 is an object here. So every object will have an ID here. So I will say enter and you can see we got the same ID. So the address is not based on the variable name, it is based on the box itself. So the moment you say I want to use a value, it belongs to a box and the address of that box is here. Now in future, if you create one more variable called as k, and if you assign the value for k as 10, now if I fetch the ID for k, so we are not actually talking about k here, we're talking about 10 because indirectly your k is referring to 10, right? That's important. So these variables are also called as tags because we are tagging them. So 10 is a value and you're tagging a, b, k. So everything is tagging the same object. Okay, this is awesome. So you can see we got the same ID. Now if I change the value for a, let's try. So I will say a is equal to, let's say 9. I want to change the value for a. Now what do you think? Will it affect the address of a? Of course, right? Because now you have a different box, different value, different box, and different box means different address. Let's try, and that's right. We got a different value for a. That works. So if I change the value of a, and if you see this statement here, this is simply b is equal to a, right? So if a changes, will it affect b? Let's try. Okay, so if I say id of b, oh no, so id of b is still the same old value because b is still referring to 10, right? So we got two different boxes and each box have a different address. So here k and b is pointing to 10 and your a is pointing to 9 now. Maybe in future you will say k is equal to a now. So of course the tag of k will change to the value 9, right? Let's verify. So I will say int of k, and you can see now it is referring to 9. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so now we got 2 boxes, right? Now what if you, so you can see we have b which is referring to 10 as of now, and k and a referring to 9. What if in future even b is referring to a new value, let's say 8. So in total we have 3 boxes now. So a and k, they are referring to 9, and we have b referring to 8, and no one is referring to 10. Now what will happen to 10? Now 10 is there, right? 10 is there in the memory and no one is using it. And that's where in Python we have a concept of garbage collection. Again, we'll talk about that later, how it works. So we'll talk about PVM later. So we have a different concept, we have PVM, objects, garbage collection. So we'll talk about those things in detail later. But as of now, remember this thing. Whenever you have a data in your memory which will not be used or which is not tagged by any variable, it will be garbage collected later. Okay, but till that point, if you have any reference, it is there in the memory. Okay, it will be there for your use. Now, how about creating a constant? Example, let's say we have this concept of constants. What are constants now? So when you say variable, it means you can change the value, right? Now, but when it comes to constant, that means you cannot change the value. Something like immutable stuff. But can you make a variable constant? And see, programming is the only place where you can make a variable constant, right? But in Python, you cannot do that. Yes, you can show your intention by saying, hey, this is a constant. Example, normally when we say constant, we use a different format of names, example, capital letters. So I will say pi value. Normally, if you remember, in maths, we use a concept of pi, like 3.14. Yeah. Now this is a constant value, right? No one can change it. It will never be changed. So in this case, you will be using this as a constant. Of course, you cannot stop anyone by changing this value. Example, I can change this value later. So if I type pi, you can see we got 3.14. But what if I change the value? Yes, I can change the value. I can say 3.15, which will be a crime in this case. But we can change the value. But you can show your intentions by saying, hey, this is a pi, you can see capital letters there, so don't change the value. So the intention here is to make it constant, don't change it. So yes, unfortunately in Python you cannot make it constant, but you can show your intentions. Now with variables, we have one more concept which is called as type of the variable. Example, in this case, if I say the type, now how do we know the type? So we have this method called as type, and you can pass pi, and you can see the type of pi is float. So whenever you want to know the type of a variable, you just type, and in bracket you can mention the variable name. It will give you the type of it. You can do the same thing for a, b, k, and everything. So with the variable which we are using here, those variables has a type which is inbuilt types, right? But can I create my own types? And the answer is yes, you can create. But we'll be doing that later, maybe in some other tutorial. But we can use inbuilt types. Example, int, float, those are inbuilt types. But how many types we have? Normally these types are called as data types. And in this video, we'll talk about one of my favorite topics, which is called as data types. Now, why it's so important? Because we have worked with variables, right? And everything was working. Now, when you work on a project, it's very important to understand what type of data you're working with so that you can process that data in that format. Because if you don't process the data in that particular format, you might face errors or maybe bugs, and trust me, bugs are horrifying. So what are the data types we have here? So let me just list those things here. The first one is none. Second one is numeric. The third one we have is list, tuple, set, string, range, and map. Or you can call it as dictionary. Now let's start with the first one. The first one is none. Know what it means? Now when you have a variable, and if that variable is not assigned with any value, it is none. Normally in other languages we use a keyword as null, but in Python we use none. The second one is numeric type. Now if we talk about numeric, we have multiple types here. In fact, we can go with 4. The first one is int. Then we have float, then we have complex, and we have bool. So when you talk about numeric, it works numbers, right? Example, when I say num is equal to 2.5, now this is float, okay? So float value. Now, how do we know that this is float? In fact, in the last session we have done that, right? So we can use a type as a function, and in this you can pass num, and you can say it says class float. Again, we'll talk about class later, okay, what class means, but time being, it's a float. Okay, so now I will say another number. I will say num is equal to 5. Of course, we can change the type of variable, right? So now if I assign 5, if I say num, and you can see the class now changed to int. That means the type of this num is int. We also have complex, right? Now what complex means? So if I will say num is equal to, now if you remember mathematics, we used to have this concept of complex numbers, right? Now how do we represent complex numbers? So we used to say a plus bj, or in fact it was I in complex number, but here we have to use j. Now we can replace the value of a with a number. I would say 6 plus maybe 9 j. Normally this j is represented by a square root of -1. Okay, now so when I say enter, you can see it is accepting the value, and if I see the type of this num, it's your complex type. So complex basically means you have a number plus or minus a imaginary number. Okay, now this works. So we have int, we have float, and we have complex. So can I convert from a different type? Example, I have a value which is float and I want to convert that into integer. Is it possible? Let's try. So what I will do here is I will take a variable called as a, and the value in a I will assign as 5.6. I have another variable which is b, and I want to assign the int value of a. Can I convert it? Because if I see the type of a, it's float, right? I want to get the type of b as int, and I only want to have the value which is 5. So in that case, you will be using an int function in which you will pass a. So this int function will convert your float value or any value into integer format. And that works. Now if I say the type of b, it's int, and the value of b is 5, right? So we can convert that. Can I convert an int value into float? Yes, we can. So let's say we have another variable which is k, and I want to fetch the value of b, but not in the int format. I want in float format. Yes, we can do that. So I can say float, and in this bracket you can pass it and you will get, so if I say k, you can see we got 5.0, and of course the type of it is float. We can check it out later. Can I convert a normal number into complex number? Example, I have a variable and I have b variable. So let me change the value for k, and I will assign the k to 6. Okay, so we got b as 5 and k as 6. Now I want to get a complex number. So I will say c is equal to, how do we get a complex number? It's very simple. Just use a complex function the way we are doing. And then you can pass two variables here, or only one parameter, when that works. If I want to pass two parameters, I can pass b comma k. And if I say c, you can see the value now. So it says 5 plus 6j, because 5 is your b and 6 is your k. Okay, so it works. So we can convert the value from here to there. In fact, we can work with string as well, but we'll see that later. Now we also have a type called as bool, which is also called as boolean. Now how can we use a boolean value here? Now when it comes to boolean, it simply means true and false. Now think about this computer world, right? Or in this world, we always take decisions, and decisions are based on true or false. In your mind, we always work with these conditions. Example, let's say if you have two choices, you will select those choices which is more favorable or which will be more profitable, right? So we apply conditions there. So if that is more profitable, we'll go there. If this is more profitable, we'll go here. Then the same way, we apply a condition and we get true or false. So that true or false comes under boolean type. Now we have b and k, right? So if I want to check if b is less than k, we can do that. So less than symbol is less than, and if I say enter, you can see we got true. So true here is a boolean type, right? And you can assign that to a variable as well. So I will say variable type as bool is equal to b less than k. Now you can see in this bool, if I type bool, you can see it is true. And if I say the type of bool is bool itself, because it's a type name as well, right? So I should have used a different name here, right? So that's boolean for you. In fact, we have true and we have false as well. Example, if I say b is greater than k, and that's not the case, right? B is 5, k is 6, so it should give you false. So we have true and we have false. Again, there are different operators which we can use, less than, greater than. So we have different operators which we'll discuss in the upcoming videos. But here we can use true or false. But then why I'm keeping true and false in numeric? It should be different, right? The thing is, in Python, what we do is we we use true as 1 and false as 0. Example, let's say if I want to convert true into a number, you can see I'm converting that into int format, and you can see we got 1. The same thing if I do for false, you can see we got 0. So true is 1 and false is 0. So that's your integer format, that's your numeric type. So we have talked about none, we have talked about numeric. The next type we have is, in fact, we have discussed those names, right? Those things comes under sequence. So when you say list, range, set, tuple, those things comes under sequence. Now we have worked with list before, right? So how do we define list? It's very simple. You will say lst equal to, you can define a list here. So I can say 25, 36, 45, 12. Any number, any format, doesn't matter. You can take string as well. So this is how you work with list. And how do we know the type of it? So we will say type of LST, and you can see it says it is of type list. The same thing can be done with set. So if I get a set here, I will say s equal to, and you will use a curly brackets there, and inside that you can specify values. So I've specified these values, and you can see if I say enter and if I say s, you got the values there, and you can see it is not repeating. And if I define the type of this s, it is set, right? So even this works. Now the another type we have is tuple, which we have worked with again. So I will say t is equal to, so we have to use a round bracket here. I will say 25, 26, you can use any format, doesn't matter, right? You can see we got t, and if I say type of t, here is tuple. Okay, now we also have a string type, right? So how do we define a string type? It's very simple. You say str is equal to, and you can specify a name here using double quotes or single quotes, both works. I can say my name, that's Naveen, and using str you can perform certain operations. Again, we have done that in detail in earlier videos, right? So if you want to know more about list and tuple, you can go back to the previous videos and you can watch it. In this video, we are just talking about the data types available. How about character? Because we have not talked about character, right? And if you are coming from some other languages like Java, C, C++, we do have a char type there. Now in Python, we don't have a char type. What we have is, if you are creating a string, let's say I will say this is st is equal to, and if you have a single digit or single character, that's a char type for you. But actually it is string, because even if you say type and if you specify st, you can see it says class str, which is string in this case. So we have string, we don't have char as to be specific, but we can use char as a part of string. Now we have another fancy stuff which is there in Python but not in other languages, called as range. Example, when you iterate, or what is iteration means, going from one value to the end value. Example, from 1 to 10 or 10 to 100, or maybe from 1 to 1000. So when we iterate between values, we can use range. How do we define range? It's very simple. You say range, and you give a curly brackets and specify the range. Example, I want to go till 10. So we got a range from 0, and we have 10 values, which is 0 to 9. How do we know what values we have? So what we can do is we can actually convert the range into a list so that we can print it, right? So what I will do is I will say list of range, and we'll say 10. In fact, there's another way of doing this. We can also use a for loop, but unfortunately we have not done that yet. So we'll not be focusing on for loop here because we have a better way of printing it. But as of now, just to get the output of the range, I'm converting a range into a list so that you can see the output. And you can see this is the range. So if I want to get a list of, let's say, 10 values from 0 to 9, we will use a range there. Okay, you might be saying, what if I want to have a range with different iterations, maybe a different difference? Example, I want to print all even numbers from 1 to 10. In that case, you can do that. You can say, I want to start with, or maybe you can start with 2, and then the ending part is 10, and the difference would be 2 because you want even numbers, right? So you can do that, but you have to put that in a range. So range does take 3 parameters as well. And you can see we got 2, 4, 6, and 8. So I should have went till 11, right? Because that's the ending part. Okay, so this is how you can use a range. In fact, you can just type here and you can say range. Of course, right, it will give you range as it will give you range type. So that's one type you can use. And all these things comes under sequence, right? Because we are getting a sequence of values. And now we have one of the most exciting type, which is called as mapping, or you can say dictionary. Now what is dictionary? Normally what happens, when you have huge amount of data and when you want to fetch data in an efficient way or in a fast way, what you can do is with every value you can assign a key. Normally in list what we do is for the value we assign an index number, right? But in dictionary for every value we'll assign a key. Example, let's say I want to have all the mobile phones names. Example, so let's say in my friend group if I have let's say 50 phones, everyone has a different phone here. So we can do an index number, right? So index number 0, iPhone 6s, index number 1, Samsung, maybe Samsung J8, index number 3, OnePlus 3, index number 4, let's say MI5. So we want to have all these numbers. Now instead of having index numbers, we can use a key, which is your name. Example, who has OnePlus 3? Let's say Kiran. Who has iPhone 6s? Let's say Rahul. Who has Samsung? Let's say Navin. So in this case, every mobile phone has a name or a key attached to it. So it will be easier for you to fetch, right? Okay, now it's not just about string, okay? You can also use numbers, you can also use, example, roll numbers. Example, when you go for giving your CET exams or entrance exams, you get a number, right? That's your key. So you can identify each object with a key. How do I do that here? Oh, there's one thing to remember. Key should be unique. So if you have a dictionary, all the keys has to be unique. And values, you can repeat values. Let's try it out. How do we define a dictionary? It's very simple. Let's say D is equal to, you have to use a curly brackets. Now why curly brackets? Because keys should not repeat, and what doesn't repeat? Set, and set uses curly brackets, right? So it makes more sense here. So I will use a key as let's say Naveen, and then I will use a value. Let's say Naveen has a phone which is Samsung. We can give another value by giving a comma, and here I will say who has this value. Let's say Rahul. Rahul is using let's say iPhone, and then we have one more, let's say Kiran, and Kiran is using OnePlus. Okay, now this is, oh, I made a mistake there. Okay, so I just missed a colon here, right? So that was my bad. If I try to print D, you can see we got the key and a value pair. So in this case, Naveen, Rahul, and Kiran, those are keys. How do I know those are keys? You can say D dot, you can print the keys, and you can see we got these keys. You got Naveen, Rahul, and Kiran, those are keys. And if you want to get the values, I guess we have a method with values. Yes, so we do have a method which is values, and if I say enter, you can see Samsung, iPhone, and OnePlus, those are values. Now how do I get a particular value? Let's say I want to get iPhone here. In this case, I have to use a key, right, which is Rahul in this case. So I will say D square bracket. If in list we use index numbers, right? We don't have index numbers here. We have a key. So we'll use Rahul as a key, and if I enter, you can see we got iPhone. So that's dictionary. In fact, we have one more way of fetching value. Instead of using a square bracket, we can also use function like get. In this get, you can mention, hey, I want to fetch, let's say, Kiran's phone, which is OnePlus, right? So you can use a square bracket, you can use a get method, everything works. That's how you work with data types. So we have different data types. Let me just list those things once again. So we have none, we have numeric types, we have sequence. In sequence, we have list, range, set, tuple, and then we have mapping, in which we have dictionary. So till this point, we have covered a lot of stuff, right? We know how to work with IDLE now. We know how to perform certain operations. And in this video, we'll try to work with operators. Now, some of the operators we have used, right? We have worked with arithmetic operators, which is your addition, subtraction, division, right? Now we also have some more operators which we are going to say in this video. So we'll talk about arithmetic operators, assignment operators, relational operators, and logical operators. And we have one more, which is unary operator. So let's start with arithmetic. In fact, we have seen arithmetic, right? We have worked with addition, subtraction. They are very simple, right? So in fact, we have done that before. So I'll be using some variables here. Let's say x equal to 2 and y is equal to 3. So we got two variables and I want to perform certain operations. And we can do that, right? We have done that before. So you can say x plus y, you can say x minus y, x multiply by y. I guess I just pressed 4 by mistake. And then when you say x divided by y, even that works. You can see we got the output. So this is how you work with arithmetic operators. We have also seen how to use modulus. Now next one is assignment. And now you know, right, how assignment works. We can simply say x equal to 8, and that's your assignment operator. So whenever you use equal to symbol, that's assignment. But then let's try to do something else. What if I say I can add two numbers like x equal to x plus 2. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding the value x itself with 2. So which means if my x value is, let's say, 2 plus 2, which is 4, right? That's what I get. That's what I'm expecting here. So if I say x, we got 4. Now the same operation you can do in a shortcut way. You know, we love shortcuts. So here also we have some shortcuts, which is, if you want to do the same thing, you can say x. I want to increment. Okay, what is increment? Enhancing the values. So you will say x plus. I want to increment myself with 2. So you can say x plus equal to 2. So you are incrementing yourself by 2. And now if I say x, you can see we got the value which is 6. So x was 4 initially, and then I'm incrementing by 2 again, so we got 6. So instead of saying x equal to x plus 2, we can say x plus equal to 2. The same thing can be done with subtraction, division, multiplication. Let's try. So we'll say x multiply equal to 3. So what we are doing is we are multiplying x by itself. So x is 6 now, and when you say 6 into 3, we got 18. Is that? Yes, that's right. Okay, so this thing is working. You can do shorthand as well. You can try division and subtraction by yourself. Can we do assignment like this? Let's say we have two variables here, a and b. I want to assign value, let's say 5 and 6 to a and b. So we can write in two lines, right? We can say a equal to 5 and b equal to 6, or you can do that in one line. You can say a comma b is equal to 5 comma 6. So you can do assignment in one line itself. So if I say enter, there is no error. If I try to fetch the value of a, which is 5, if you want to try to fetch the value of b, which is 6. So yes, you can assign the values in one line for two variables. So that's about assignment operator. Now with this, let's move towards the next operator, which is a unary operator. Now when I say unary operator, it means 1, right? So we have binary concept, which is 2, unary is 1. Now how do you work with unary operator, and which one we can use? So let's say we have this concept of negation, right? Example, if I have a value which is 7, if I want to negate it, so what I will do is I will use a variable which is n is equal to 7. So we got n as 7. Now we can also use, so now we can negate it with the help of minus n. So when you say minus n, so if I say the value of n, it's still 7, right? So what you can do is, if you want to assign the negative value, you can say n is equal to minus n. And if I say enter, and if I print the value of n now, which is minus 7, so you can, put a negative sign just by giving a unit operator which is minus. So that's your arithmetic operators, assignment and unary. The next two operators which we have is, or two kind of operators which we have is logical operators and relational operators. Let's start with relational first. Now what is relational? Now in fact we have done one of the thing before, right, in one of the video, where we can compare two numbers, or we can compare two stuff. So smaller, greater, right, or compare equal to. So let's try here. So again we'll go for two variables here, which is a and b, which we have done before. And of course the value of a is 5 and the value of b is 6. So can I do this? I want to check if a is less than b. So you can say a is less than b, and answer is yes, right? Because a is 5 and b is 6. So when I say enter now, it says true. And if you remember, we have done that in Boolean. So it returns a true and false. So when we use this angular symbol, it's less than. We can also use greater than symbol, right? Now what if the value of a and b, of course they are not same. So how do you check for this comparison if they are same? Because see, we cannot use single equal to, because single equal to means you are assigning it. We are not assigning here, we are comparing it. So in that case, you will be using double equal to, and then you will say b, and you can see we got false. And of course, right, a is 5 and b is 6, so of course it will give you false. Now in that case, what you will do is you will say, let's change the value of a. I will say a is also 6. So now b is 6, a is 6. Let's perform the same operation. I will say a is equal to b, and you can see we got true. Now they are same, right? So it will give you true. I want to check if a is less than or equal to b. Can we do both at the same time, less than and equal to? Yes, we can. So we can say a less than equal to b. So we can use this symbol. In fact, in maths, we also have a symbol, right? So the same way we have in programming, we can just put less than and equal to. The same thing can be done for greater than equal to. Of course, it's not greater or less, it's equal to. So it will compare either less or equal to. And you can see it works. Now we can also check if they are not equal. Now how do we check not equal? Let's say a is something else and b is something else, and I want to check if they are not equal. In that case, you will use not equal to b. So not is exclamation. So in programming, remember this thing. Whenever you see exclamation, that's a not symbol. So we got a not equal to b. If I say enter, you can see we got false. Why false is because your a is equal to b, right? So when you say not equal to, it doesn't make sense. It is false. But yes, the value of A or B is, let's say, 7 now. So we have A and B with different values. If I perform the same operation, A not equal to B, you can see we got true, right? So these are called as relational because you are trying to relate to different values. The next set we have is logical operators. So before understanding what logical operators are, you need to understand the concept of true and false and relation between. So if you have two conditions and if you want to combine those two conditions, now it can be based on and, or it can be based on or it can be not. So basically we have three operators here: and, or, and not. Now let's say we have two conditions, one related to A. We can say if A, let me just clean this shell once. So let's again start with variables. We can say here, we got two variables. We'll say A is equal to 5 and B is equal to, let's say, 4. We got two variables, okay? And individually, I want to check their preference. Example, if A is less than 8, and I also want to check B should not be greater than 5. How do I check both? And I want to make sure that A should be less than 8 and B should be less than 5. In that case, we will write two conditions. One is A less than 8 and B is less than 5. So we have two conditions here. What should I put in between? So in that case, you can use our logical operators, which is AND. So I want to compare, I want to check both, right? So I will say and you can see we got true because both are true. Now, what if I say I want to check if A is less than 8 and B is less than 2? What do you think? What is the output? Is it true or false? See, now the first condition is true, right? And the second condition is false because B is not less than 2. In that case, you will think, okay, one is true, it should give you true, but unfortunately we get false. Now, why it's the case? Because to understand that, we have a table here. Now, this table is also called a truth table. You can represent true with 1 and false with 0. This is how it looks like. So when you have, let's say we have X and Y. So X represents one conditional output and Y represents second conditional output. We'll compare this. So if X is 0 and Y is 0, because both are false now, in that case the output would be false, right, which is 0 in this case. If X is 0 and Y is 1, in that case you will get again false. So you have to make sure both are true. Then only you will get true. And you can see the last one now. So when you have the last row where you have 1 and 1, then you will get 1. So if both the conditions are true, then only you will get true. That's the property of AND. Now the same thing can be done for OR. We also have OR. Now this is how your OR truth table looks like. Now in OR what we have is, so we have the same table. If you get at least one condition true, the resultant condition will also be true. Right? So in this case, if I do the same thing but not with AND, with OR, you can see the first condition is true, second is false. In that case, you will get true. So because at least one is true, so both the output will be true. So that's how your and OR works. We can also use a NOT here. Now what is NOT? NOT basically reverses your output. Example, let's say if I say X is equal to true, because that's a resultant thing, right? Okay, my bad. So if I say X is equal to true, so we got a true value, right? And if I print X, you got true. But if I want to negate it, what I will do is I will use not X. In that case, you will say you got false, right? So you can reverse the operation. You can reverse a thing with the help of not. In fact, you can say X equal to not X now. So the value of X is false. So initially the value of X was true. Now you are making it false. So that's how you can use not. Now this is a logical operation, okay? So when you have conditions and if you want to compare two conditions, that's where we use logical operators and, or not. Again, you will be using this a lot in the further videos when we talk about different loop patterns. We want to print something and then we will do some amazing stuff. In that amazing stuff, we'll be using all these things. Just a reminder, whatever we are doing now is just a foundation for you so that you can work on complex codes, right? Now in this video, we'll talk about binary formats. In fact, not just binary, we'll talk about different number systems. Normally when you work in the programming world, we work with binary formats and we work with decimal system. So in the programming world, we use a binary system and a decimal system. But apart from this, we have two more systems, which is octal and hexadecimal. Now, when do we use all this stuff? So in the networking field, we use MAC address, right, which is normally defined in hexadecimal format. Same goes for IPv6, which is defined in hexadecimal format. In your computer, we use binary format. In normal system, we use decimal system. So let's understand how do we convert these values from one system to other system. Now, of course, you can do it on paper, and you can do it in a software or use with the help of codes. Now, before understanding how do you convert this using Python, let's try it on paper first. You know, we can do it. So if I open my IDE, you can convert a number from decimal to binary format. Example, if I want to convert a number, let's say 25. So we have this number 25. I want to convert this into a binary format. Now, I don't know how many of you know how to convert a number into binary format. So people who are very beginner to the programming world, they might not be knowing it. And if you have experience, that's great. Now, if you don't know how binary format works, I would recommend you to go and watch some videos on binary format, or we'll try to do some in this video. Let's say I want to convert this. We can use a function called as bin. So using bin function, we can convert a number from decimal system to binary system. Now, when you say decimal system, it means the base of the system is 10. And in binary system, the base is 2. Which means in decimal system, we can go from 0 to 9. So we have 10 digits. In binary system, we can go from 0 to 1, 2 digits. And that's why we say it's bits, binary digits, right? So we have binary format there. In fact, we have octal system where we have 8 digits. So it starts with 0 and it ends at 7. On the other hand, we have hexadecimal system where we have 16 as a base. Now it starts with 0, it goes till 9, and after 9 it goes from A to F. So in total we have 16. So now let's come back from decimal to binary. We'll click on enter. You can see this is your binary format. It's so simple. You just need to use a bin function, and in bracket you have to pass 25. But hold on, how do you convert this number? And even if you get this output, how do you know this is the correct output? So let me just take some time to explain you how to convert a number from a decimal system to a binary system. So for that, let me open my Paint. So let's try to understand how it works. So let's say we have a number 25. So we'll go for a number 25 here. And if I want to find a binary format of this 25, what do we do is you have to divide this number by 2. So whatever system you have, so example, if you want to convert from decimal to octal, decimal to hexadecimal system, you have to divide this number by that system. So example here, I want to find binary format. So I will divide this by 2. Now everyone knows, right? So it is 2 into 12, you will get 24. So the remainder is 1. So when you say 2 into 12, we got 24, and the remainder is 1. You have to continue this. So you have to say 2, you will get 6. So 2 into 6, you will get 12. So the remainder is 0. Then we have 2 into 3. The remainder is 0 again. And then we got 2 into 1, which is remainder is 1 in this case, because 2 into 1 is 2, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. Now this is your numbers, you know. So this is your binary format. So this is how you convert from decimal to binary format. But how do we read this? So we have to read this in a reverse order. So you have to start from this end and you have to go to top. So which is, in this case, this is 1. Then we have this is 1, 0, 0, 1. So this is a binary format of 25. So this is how you convert a number from decimal system to binary format. It's so simple. Let me go back to the IDE here. And here what I will do is, so this, you can see the number here. We got 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, the same number. But what is before that? You can see we got 0 and B. That's how you represent a binary format. So if you want to say there's a number which is 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, and you might be thinking, if you got this number, this may be decimal, right? So to specify that, hey, this is not a decimal number, we will use 0B. Okay, that's very important. In fact, you can convert a number from binary system to decimal system. It's very easy. Just say 0B. I will use a number which is 0101 in this case, which is actually a number 5, right? So I will say enter. You can see we got 5. So before the number, or before the binary format, if you put 0B, that means the number is binary format, and it will give you the output in decimal format. We can do the same thing for octal, right? So example, let's go with the same number. I will say, oh, which function we have to use? You can guess, right? So for binary, we have bin. For octal, it should be oct, right? And then we'll give a number which is 25. I will say enter. Now this is octal format. So the octal conversion of 25 is 31. But what is before that? It's 0O. So O is octal, right? So in the above case, we have B, that's for binary. The same thing can be done with hexadecimal. So I will say hex, and I want to find 25, so I will say enter. You can see it is 0x19. And that's very important, which is X here. So X is for hexadecimal number, right? In fact, I will just try to find the hex of 10. So X of 10 is A, right? So if I say enter, you can see we got 0xa. You can do the same thing in reverse order. You can say 0x. Maybe I want to find maybe F. So in this case, F is 15. So if I say enter, you got 15. In fact, in the subsequent videos which we are going to see, we will be working with different operators like bitwise operator. And this video is very important for the bitwise operators. Make sure you know how to convert a decimal number into binary format. And for that, let me give you some assignments. So what you can do is try to convert not on the Python command prompt, okay? If you do it by yourself. So try to find the binary format of, let's say, 31. Then try to, so this is your homework, okay? So try to find out binary format of 21, then 52, then 65. So these are some numbers you can try it out. And then you can also do reverse, okay? So let's say if I give you binary format, I have a number which is 0b, and let's say this is the number. I don't know what's the decimal format of this. You have to find this as well. So in this case, it is 410, but how can we know that? So in that case, you can do this in reverse order as well. So the number was 11001110. So how do you convert this number into decimal system? So first let's try with this number, and then you can try with this number by yourself. Now whenever you want to convert a number from binary to decimal, it's very simple. Start from the last number. So start from the last number and use 2 raised to 0. Second last number, 2 raised to 1. So we have to go for 2 raised to 2, 2 raised to 3, and 2 raised to 4. Right now this number belongs to one particular number here. So for this one we have 2 raised to 4. For this one we have 2 raised to 3, right? Now ignore all the zeros here because we don't need them. Focus only on ones. So what you will do is first you will find 2 raised to 0 is what? 2 raised to 0 is 1. 2 raised to 1 is 2. 2 raised to 2 is 4. Okay, first of all, we don't need these two numbers, right? Because those are zeros anyway. Then 2 raised to 3 is 8. 2 raised to 4 is 16, and then once you got this number, you just need to add them. So you can say 16 plus 8, which is 24. 24 plus 1, we got 25. So first you have to use this format, and then you have to add all the values, you will get the decimal format. The same thing can be done with this. You try it out on your machine and let me know if you have done that. So that's it, everyone. That's how you can work with different number system in Python. And in this video, we will talk about how do you access the previous commands in IDLE. Now, when you work on Python, so we write a lot of code, right? Example, if I want to add two numbers, or if I want to perform some operation like x equal to 2 plus 4 plus 9. Now, in this case, when you say hit enter, and if you want to access the same command again, can you do it? Normally what happens is when you work on CMD, what we get is, let's say if I perform any operation here, example up, again, this is not a command in Windows, but let's try. So when I say up, and if I want to get the same command again, we just need to press up arrow, right? So when you say up arrow, you will get this. When you work with ipconfig and you get this, and again, if I want the same command, you can say enter, you just say up and enter, you get it. That's not the case with IDLE. In this case, if you want to access that, we don't have by default option. So what you have to do is you just need to go to options, and then you have to click on configure IDLE, and here you need to click on keys. Now we need to find the history, right? So just scroll down to search for history. So it is your history previous. Now by default, it will be, I guess, Alt P in your machine because I've changed it in my earlier session. If you want to change it, just click on that and select get new keys for selection. And here you can select the up arrow. So you can see we have up arrow. Click on OK and click on OK now. So if you want to access the last element or last command, you just say up arrow and you get the command. Now, of course, when you are new to Python, you will not be knowing this, but once you start working on it, you will be needing this command a lot. So this is how you find the previous command. I got some more questions, after the video. So let's say if you reach here, and in Windows, we have this command, this CLS. So when you say CLS, it clears the command. Now that's not the case here, So that's not the case in IDLE. You cannot simply clear this screen. Even if I try, we don't have anything here. I guess you can write some script which works on Python shell, but that doesn't work in IDLE. The only way you can do that is by closing IDLE and reopen it. Okay, now if you have seen my videos, in my videos I have done that, so I was scrolling up, but I was not scrolling in IDLE. So it was a animation effect. So when I was editing my video, I made sure that it goes up so that you can see those things normally. So the editing is done so that you can view it. So I have not scrolled on IDLE. So as per my knowledge, it's not possible. Maybe there might be some hidden script or some technique. So if you know that, let me know in the comment section so that it will be helpful for everyone. So that's it. That's how you get the previous command, and that's how you That's the answer for your question about how to clear the screen. So till this point, we have worked with operators, right? We have talked about assignment operator, arithmetic operators, and logical operators. Now it's time to focus on some more operators. And this time, we are going to work with bitwise. Now, if you remember, in one of the videos, we have talked about binary formats, right? So this is where you will use them. So for sure, the name suggests it is something to do with binary formats, right? So whatever you're going to do now is with bits. So let's get started. So let's open Python and let's do this calculation. Now the first one, so if we talk about bitwise, we have 6 different operators. We have complement operator, then we have AND, OR, XOR, left shift and right shift. Okay, let's start with the first one, which is complement operator. And if you look at the symbol of it, it's weird, right? We don't use this symbol much. So this is called as tilde operator or tilde operator. Now where you will find it? So if you look at your keyboard, just below the escape key, you have this special key called as tilde. So let's use it, and that's your tilde sign, and we'll give any number here. We will go for 12. Now when you say enter, what you are expecting? Come on, go for a random guess here. Maybe minus 12, or maybe minus 1, something like that, right? Now if I say enter, oh, we got minus 13. That's weird. Why minus 13? So let's do a research on this now. So let me go back to my paint and let's do the calculation. So how do you find this? Now to understand this, first of all, we need to find what is complement means. Now when you say complement, it will simply do reverse of your binary format. Example, if you say complement 1, it will give you 0. And if you say complement 0, it will give you 1. That's what it's doing. Now the same thing is applied on 12, right? Now, and what is 12? 12 is actually, if you convert 12 into binary format, you will get this. So you will get 4 zeros, 1100. That's your 12 binary format. And I love this mobile phone model, right? Nokia 1100. Everyone love it. Now, we need to find a complement of it, right? So you have to find the complement of it. So what you will do is you will reverse the number. So this 0 becomes 1, and then this is 1, then this is 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. So this is your complement of 12. But hold on, what is this number and why we got minus 13? That's weird, right? Now if you look at minus 13, why minus 13 is this number? That we have to find out that now. Now to understand this concept, again as a programmer, you need to know all this concept because you will, so when you do any course in for IT or CS, this is what they will teach you in the first year. But if you don't know this concept, that's okay, you can learn here now. Now we have a concept of 2's complement because what happens is in your system, we can store positive numbers, right? We can store 12, we can store 13, we can store 15, 20, 21, or maybe 1000. But how to store negative numbers? Now to store negative numbers, first of all, we don't store negative numbers in the system. We always store positive numbers. So even if you want to store this minus 13, you need to convert this number into a positive number first. And the way you can do that is with the help of 2's complement. Now how do you find 2's complement? So to find 2's complement, we need to find 1's complement plus 1. This is the formula, okay? So when you say 2's complement, it is 1's complement plus 1. Now how do you find 1's complement? It's easy actually. First, convert this number into binary format. Now what is 13? It's 12, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. This is a binary format of plus 13. So this is 13, okay? We want to find minus 13, right? So you have to find 2's complement of this number. Now let's find the 1's complement. And how do you find 1's complement? It's easy now. We know how to find complement, right? So we have to reverse this number. So you will get 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. So this is 1's complement of 13, but we want to find 2's complement, right? So what you will do, you will say plus 1. Now this is, so when you say 0 plus 1, it will give you 1, and then we got 1, then we got 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now this number here, this is minus 13, okay? So this is 2's complement of 13, which is minus 13. We got it. And now if you compare this number with complements of 12, they are same, and that's why you got. So when you say complements of 12, you got minus 13, right? So that was the answer. So that's how you can work with complements. So when you want to store negative number, this is what you do. Now I would recommend you to try different numbers here, maybe complements of 45, maybe complements of 121. So try it out and let's see what answers you get there. So that's your complements operator. The next one we have is bitwise AND. Now if you remember, in the previous video we have talked about logical operators, right? So in logical we have AND and OR, right? So here as well we can use bitwise AND and bitwise OR. So in AND, remember this thing. So whenever you have AND, and if you have two conditions and both are true, then only you will get true. And in OR, if you have at least one true, you will get true. If you remember. So if you remember this table, right, that's what you're going to do here now. So let's do bitwise AND. Now which operator we use here? So we don't use AND because AND is for logical operations. So here we have to use ampersand symbol. So let's take 12 ampersand 13. Okay, so we got these two numbers, 12 and 13. If I say enter, you got 12. But why 12? So let's find out using bitwise. So let's go back to our paint, and here we'll convert 12 into binary format, which is 00001100. This is 12's binary format, right? And then we have 13's binary format, which is 00001101. And now we need to find out the bitwise here, right? So we have to work with bits. So let's compare this bit with this bit. Now if you remember AND operation, if both are 1, then only 1, right? So this, in this case, this is 0, 1, so it will be 0. This is 0, this is 1 because both are 1s, and then we got 0, 0, 0, 0. And if you compare this output, this is 12, right? So you got bitwise AND. So this was an AND operation, and that's why you got 12. Let's do OR. So we'll say 12, OR. So now for OR we have to use pipe, okay? So for AND we have ampersand, for OR we have pipe. And then, okay, where you will find pipe, so it is above your enter button. So when you say 12 or 13, come on, guess. Now, in fact, before entering here, let's do calculation, let's compare here. So let's go back here and let's do some calculation. So it will be 00001100, that's 12, 00001101. That is your 13, right? And let's do OR. So when you say OR, if any one is 1, so your output is 1, right? So we got 1, we got 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And that's your 13, right? So this is 13. Let's verify. And if I say enter, oh, we got 13, right? So this works. So this is how you work with bitwise AND and bitwise OR. In fact, you know, you might be thinking only 12 and 13 you will get maybe some other number. Let's try. So I will say 25 and maybe 31. Or maybe 30, yeah, 30. And you can see we got 24. Again, this is your homework, right? So try it on your notebook. So open your notebook and convert 25 to binary format, convert 13 to binary format, and just do AND operation. And of course, you will get 24. The next one we have is XOR. Now in XOR, what you do is, it's actually very simple. When you say you have two numbers, which is 0 and 0. Now since we don't have any 1 here, we will get 0. Then you have 0, 1. Now in this case, you have odd number of 1, right? So which is 1, 1. So you will get answer 1. Now when you say 1 and 0, so we have odd numbers of 1, which is 1. And when you don't have odd numbers of 1, you can see we have 2 1s, which is even number, so you will get 0. Okay, so when you have odd numbers of 1, you will get 1. If you want to remember in a shortcut way, it's very simple. If both the numbers are different, then you can go for 1, right? So we have 0 1 is 1, 1 0 is 1. So that's very simple. This is how you perform XOR operation. This is XOR, and you can represent that with the help of cap symbol. So let's do that here. Again, we'll take two different numbers here. We will go for, let's go for 12. Again, the same number, 12 cap 13 here. Oh, I just made a mistake there. 12 cap 13, and you can see the answer is 1. But why 1? Let's verify. So let's go back here and do calculations. So what is 12? We have done that, 0 0 0 0 1 1 0 0, and then we have 13 here, which is 0 0 0 0 1 1 0 1. And now let's do XOR. So if you have two different numbers, then 1, right? So they are different, 1. They are same, 0 0 0. All are same numbers here, so we'll go for 0 0 0. So the only answer you got here is 1, right? So that's why we got 1. That's how you perform XOR operation. So you can try here with different numbers, right? Again, the same number, 25 and 30, try it out and let's see what you get. In fact, I will do it here. So I will say 25 cap 30 and you got 7. But how 7? That's your homework, right? Let me know in the comment section what you get here. Now once you have done with AND, OR and XOR, let's move towards left shift. I love this concept of left shift. So what is left shift here? So what I will do is, first of all, let me try something here. So I would say 10. Now when you say left shift, you have to use this left shift operators, which is left hand side. And then you will say 2. Okay, what's your guess? What is the output? I don't know, let's try. So you got 40, but why 40? Let's find out. Now when you say, let's go to paint here and let's do calculation. Now when you say 10, what is 10? Now I will ignore the earlier zeros, okay? So just because I'm damn lazy to write every time that. I will directly go with 1 0 1 0. So again we do have 4 zeros before, but ignore them. So we got 1 0 1 0, and then we have to apply a left shift operator here. Now how do we use it? Now in left shift what happens is, imagine there's a box here. So imagine this is a box, and then we have a dot here, dot symbol, and then we have some zeros. Now of course, right, every number is represented this way. Example, when you say 5, it's actually 5.0. In fact, we can have multiple zeros here, right? So when you say 65, it's again, we do have zeros there, but we ignore zeros because they are zeros. Here as well, when you say 1 0 1 0, we do have a dot. So we do have a dot, and then after dot we have multiple zeros. In left shift, what we do is we shift the bits on left hand side. Okay, I don't know from which side you are. So you are facing me, so for you this side, right? So left hand side. So let's do that. Okay, so when you say left shift, you have to shift bits. But how many bits? You need to shift 2 bits, right? Example, if you see the output here, so you are shifting 10 by 2 bits. So when you say 2 bits, you got 1 0 1 0, and then you need to shift on left hand side 2 bits. So you will add 2 more zeros, then we have a dot. So we were having a dot after 0, but after shifting, you have shifted 2 zeros on this side, right? Now this number here is 40. Now how do you verify? Go with the normal calculation, right? 2 to 0, 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 2 to 3. So this 1 is 2 to 3, and then we got 2 to 4, and then we got 2 to 5. So consider this one and consider this one. So this is 32 and this is 8. So 32 plus 8 is 40, right? So we got the answer. So that's how you find left shift. How about right shift? It's very simple. So we also have a concept of right shift, right? What I will do is I will go with the same number, 10, and right shift with 2 bits. Now in left shift, if you are gaining bits, in right shift you are losing bits. Let's verify. So if I say enter, you can say we got 2. But why 2? Let's do it here. So we have 1 0 1 0 as 10. So we have a dot here. So in right shift, you shift on this side, right hand side. So you will be losing how many bits? 2 bits, right? So you'll be losing these 2 bits. So what is remaining is 1 0, which is this is remaining, right? And what is 1 0? It's 2, right? And that's why we got 2. So that's how you work with left shift and right shift. So that's your bitwise operator. So we have talked about complement, we have talked about AND, OR, XOR, and left shift and right shift. So again, when you do scientific calculation, this will be useful there. So till this point, we have seen a lot of stuff in Python, right? And now it's time to look at mathematical functions. Now, of course, we can do that manually as well, right? You can find a square of a number. You can find a square root of a number as well. But then we can use mathematical functions. Then why to do it manually? Now let's try something. So what I will do is I will do some simple stuff. So how do you find a square root of a number? It's very simple actually. You just need to say x equal to, I want to find a square root of 25. So it's very simple. In Python, we have an inbuilt function called as square root, which is sqrt. And in this bracket, you just have to pass the number, which is 25 in this case. I will say enter. Oh, we got an error. That's bad. Maybe spelling mistake? No, it is sqrt, that's right. What went wrong here? The thing is, in Python, we have a lot of modules to work with. Now, these modules are by default not there for you. Now, if you want to use them, you need to ask for it, right? So we are living in a world where you need to ask for things. Now, how do you ask for it? The way you can ask, you can import it with the help of import, of course, and then you have to say import, and then you have to mention a module name here called math. So math is a module in which you have all these functions. I will say enter. Okay, that's done, right? So we got all the functions now. And now you can say x equal to math.sqrt, and then you can find 25. Oh, it works. Okay, there is no error. So we got our value in x now. Let's print x, and that's right, we got 5.0. Yay, it's working. In fact, we can try it with different values here now. So I will say 15x, and that's the value of square root of 15, right? So it's working. Now we have some other functions as well. Example, one of the functions which we can use here is called as float function. Now how float function works? Let's say we have a value which is y. In fact, I will print it. I will say print. I want to print float function value. So I will say math dot. So we have this concept of ceil and float. So what it means, imagine you have a value which is 2.5. So normally what we do is we try to round off these numbers, right? For example, I don't want point values. I want the integers. So in normal world, we round off these values. We say, okay, when you have 2.5, we'll make it 3. And let's say if you have 2.4, we'll make it 2. So anything which is less than 2.5 will be 2. Anything which is greater than or equal to 2.5 will make it 3. That is round off, right? But we want to use floor and seal. So imagine this is 3 and this is 2. So when you say 2.5, it will be somewhere here. So when you say 2.5, you will make it 3. When you say 2.4, you will make it 2. But then instead of using round off, we can use floor. So we have floor and we have seal. Now when we use floor, it simply means you need to go to the floor. Imagine this is floor. We have floor and we have seal. So here we have a floor and then we have seal. So when you apply a floor function, doesn't matter what your value is. Even if it is 2.9, you will get 2, right? That's floor. Now what about seal function? Example, if I say seal of 2.1. So if you say round off, it will be 2, right? But when you apply seal, you will get 3, right? Let's find it out. So when you say I want to find floor of 2.9, you will get 2. The same thing can be done for seal. So when you say seal of 2.2, you got 3, right? So floor will always give you the least value and seal will give you the highest value, highest integer. So likewise, we can do factorial. We can find sin x, cos x, all your mathematical functions. In fact, there is one more. We also have power, P-O-W. Remember, we have done this calculation, which is 3 into 2. 3 square, right? So you got 9. The same thing can be done with the help of power function. So when you say, I want to print, let's say, math.pow, which is power function, and here you will say 3, 2. Now you can see we got 9. So this is, it will give you power. You have two choices. You can use double star, which is power again, and then you can also use power function. But now when you work on big softwares, it's always better to use functions because it's more readable for other developers. Right? And then in math, we have some constants as well. It's not just about functions. Example, let's say I want to know the value of pi. We all know it, right? It's 3.14. Not exactly. After 3.14, we have some more values and no one remember that, right? So what you can do is you can say print, and I will print math.pi. And that's your pi value, right? So we have some more values there. We can also get the value of epsilon. So you will say math.e, and that's your epsilon value. So those are constants which is available. What if you don't want to use maths every time? Because see, we have a lot of modules, right? And some module names are very big, and we are damn lazy to type those names here. So instead of using math, can I simply use m.sqrt? Well, that will be good, right? m.sqrt. But unfortunately, it will not work. So if I say enter, you can see it's not working. So in that case, if you want to use m, we need to use a concept of alias. What it means? So when you import math, say as m. So what you're doing now is you're saying, hey, I'm importing math, but whenever I want to use math, I will be using m. Or I can use m or math both. So let's try with math first. Math is working? So I will say 25. Okay, math works. Same goes for, let's try m. 25, even m works, right? So your choice, you can use m, you can use math. So whenever you have big names, or if you're lazy to type even math, you can try alias. Right? Okay, now we have one more thing, So let's say in your math module, you have so many functions available, right? So we have so many functions, classes available. And the moment you say import math, you get everything. What if you don't want everything? What if you want things which are specific? Example, I only need power function, I only need factorial, I don't want everything. So in that case, what you can do is you can say math. So when you say import, in fact, let me just reopen my IDE so that in fact we can restart. So I've restarted this shell here and let's try. So I will say math.sqrt25. You can see we got error. That means it's not imported. So now I will import, but then I don't want to import all the functions. I want to import, let's say, sqrt and power. That's it. So we'll say from math. So I have to mention we want to import from math. So we'll import only two things. One is sqrt and power. That's it. Give a comma and give say power. And you can see there's no error. Let's try. So I would say, in fact, now you don't even need to specify math because you have imported the function itself. So I will say power of 4 raised to 5. I don't know the value. Maybe it's right. So it's 1024. That's right. It's actually the right answer. So it works. It works. So that's how you work with mathematical functions. So you can try it out. There are so many functions available. So just go to documentation. In fact, we'll search here. So you can see when you search for math, you have so many functions available here. Read documentation and try it out. So the best way to learn something is to do some research, right? So after watching my videos, make sure you read some book or you do this research, and that will make you a good programmer. Till this point, we have seen so many stuff, right? We have worked with operators, we have worked with functions which are inbuilt. Now it's time to do something big. No, when I say big, I'm not talking about making games or something, because it takes time, okay? I know you people are learning Python so that you can work on big projects, but it takes time. You have to go step by step. If you jump directly on projects, you will get stuck. So make sure that you know the basics. So in this video, let's try to make big code, okay? So when I say big code, till this point, we were writing one line of code. Now it will go for 3 to 4 lines of code, right? So that's a big step. But then where to type this code? Because see, whatever we have done till now, we were doing it on an interactive console. So the thing which we do, so which the IDE which you are working with, this is your interactive console, and whatever you do here, it will give you the instant output, right? Example, if I say print, and then if I pass a message here which is hello, and if I say enter, you got the output. This is interactive console, right? But then when you work on a project, you will write multiple lines of code. Where do we do it? Of course, you will not be using this console to do it, right? And that's why you will be creating certain files when you write a code. But what about files I'm talking about? Think about this. When you type a document on MS Word, you get .doc. When you want a material to read, so we prefer PDF. So for music, we use .mp3. In the same format, for Python, we have a file extension called as .py. So we have to create a py files. How do we do that? There are certain steps. Example, you can open Notepad, type the code, save it as .demo.py, doesn't matter what the file name is, and then you can run it. Otherwise, what you can do is, since we have our IDE available here, I will click on File, and you can see we have an option of New File, so we can write a code here as well. Better, right? Okay, so let's write the code. Now, simple code, of course, will go step by step. What we'll do, let's go with the simplest one, which is printing hello. That's it. Nothing big. We'll print hello. That's it. Now, what do you think? How will you run this code? Okay, now steps. Before running a code, you need to save the code. And how do we do that? You simply say Control S, of course everyone knows that. And then you can store this file anywhere you want, maybe on cloud storage as well, maybe Google Drive or Dropbox. But here let's go with the local one. Now I will store this file on desktop. You can store it anywhere you want, but easy to access will be desktop. So I will go to desktop, and on desktop I already have a folder called as Python codes. You can create that folder, or you can just directly say on desktop. That works in this folder. And then I will create a file. I already have a demo file here. Let's go for some different name. I would say this is my code. So file name is my code, but then the extension is very important. So the extension here is py. So I will go with that extension and I will say save. Now once you have saved your file, it's time to run this. So how do we run this file? Just go here on run and click on run module. This is not the only way to do it. There are multiple ways, but this is one way. Let's go with this way first. Click on run module and look at your code. So on the console or on this shell, you got here output, which is hello. It works, right? Do we have another way? Yes, we have. We can also do that from a command prompt. You can go here. This is your command prompt, and you can run your code here. But how we do that? Now we can do that with the help of a command called as Python. Now if you remember, when you install Python on your machine, and we have done that setpath thing, if you remember, we can do that here. We can run that code here. Now first of all, before running a code, we have to make sure that you navigate to the folder where you have this file, which is Python. So I will navigate there. So I will say cd desktop. Now once I'm in desktop, I will navigate to Python codes, and you can see I'm there in the folder now. And it's time to run this. How do we run this? We'll say Python and the file name. The file name is mycode.py, and that's it. Say enter. That's your output, right? So it works. So you can run that on a shell, or you can run that on the command prompt as well. Your choice. Of course, when you work on a project, you will be using IDE, something like PyCharm or Eclipse, because it makes much more sense there. But command prompt also works. Let's get back here. Again, we'll go to command prompt after some time, but time being, let's use this one, which is this editor. Now once we got print hello, let's write a big code. Now when I say big code, let's write a code for 3 to 4 lines. I want to add 2 numbers, that's it. So what I will do is I will say x equal to 5 and y is equal to 6. So we got 2 values, and then I want to add these 2 values. And how do we do that? We have done that before. I would say z equal to x plus y, and then once you got the addition, it's time to print it. Let's print it. So I would say print Z, and that's it. Save this file, and now it's time to run this. You can click on run, and you can click on run module or shortcuts. Can you see that F5? So instead of going to run every time and run, is because see, we want to save our time, right? Simply say F5 and you got the output, which is 11. Yay, it's working. This is one place where you can write a code. Otherwise, we can actually use an IDE which is there in our system, which is PyCharm. You can use any IDE which you like, okay? All the codes work on every IDE. It's just that everyone have their own preference. I prefer JetBrains products. PyCharm is good. I also love Eclipse. You can try that as well. If you want some other IDE which you like, which you feel is better, try that. Every code works on all the IDEs. Now, how do we work with PyCharm? It's very easy. Just search for PyCharm. Of course, I hope you have installed it before. And then when you open PyCharm, this is how it looks like. So this is the prompt you will get. Now, how do we get started? So of course, when you are working with PyCharm for the first time, you will not get this option of having a project already. You need to click on create new project, and then here I will enter a project name. We can say this is test project. So of course, when you make a project, you will be having a good name, but time being test project works. I will click on create, and you can see we got PyCharm with our project. It does take some time to create the environment for you. Now you can see we got our PyCharm, and this is how it looks like. So on the left hand side, you can see we have a project section. So this is where you will see your project folders, your project files. This is where you will write the code. Of course, you don't have any option of writing code now. And this is how you will have a panel where you can run the code, where you can debug the code. And this is where you have multiple option. Example, if you want to change the setting, you can just go to file and change the setting. Like you want to change the font size, you want to change the color theme, because some people they like dark themes, so you can change that here. Again, we'll go through that, but before that I want to create a file here. So what I will do is I will say right click and say new, create a file. You can create a file or you can create a Python file, because Python file will give you the extension .py. I would say this is my code again, click on OK, and you can see I just entered my code. Look at the extension, .py is by default. Okay, this works. Let's write the same code. In fact, I will copy paste the code because I'm lazy to type it. Copied, paste. Okay, you got your code here. Now, if you want to change the font size, it's very easy. Just go to file and click on setting. You can see there's an option of editor, font. So I will say 25 and click on OK. You can see we got the font size of 25, so it is much visible now. Now we need to run this file, right? How do we run this? It's very easy. Just click on run, and there's an option of run the file. So you can just click on run, my code, and you can see the output, it's 11. If you don't want to do it from here, you can just right click and say run my code instead of going up and down. And the next time if you want to run this file, you can click here to run. If you make any changes, example, if I want to change the value from 6 to let's say 8, and if I want to run this code, I can simply click on run button there, and it should work. You can see we got 13, so it works here. In fact, there's one advantage of using an IDE, which is debug. Now, when you say debug, you can actually trace what is happening, how your code is changing, how value is changing. Let me just do it for you. Let me show you a magic. You can actually see what is happening in the code. So first of all, you have to add a breakpoint. Now, what is breakpoint? Breakpoint is something from where you can trace your code. So to get the breakpoint, just click on the line number. So if you want a breakpoint here, just click there. Now once you got your breakpoint, you need to go to run and click on debug. Now when you click on debug, it will ask you for the file name, which is my code, and you can see it has started the execution. Now how do you go to next line? Because see, it is only on the first line now, right? So you just need to type F8. Otherwise you can just go to run and say step over, but we will press F8. Now the moment I press F8, now look at the variable section. So in the variable section, it says X is of type int and the value is 5. You can actually track what is happening. In fact, on the here itself, you can see we got X:5. Now so for this code, it doesn't make any sense because we know the value. But when let's say if you're working on a big project and there's some bug in, let's say you have a file of 1,000 lines, okay, and there's a bug on line number 28. How would you know that there's a bug on line number 28? So you have to trace, right? So maybe you know that there's something wrong between line number 20 and 50, but where? So you can trace. You can put a breakpoint on line number 20 and then you can trace. Let's press F8 again, and you can see we got Y values 8. Let's press F8. Now you can see Z value is 13, and then you're printing Z value, and that's where you got the output, right? So that's how all these things are working. We will be using PyCharm a lot. So maybe from next videos we'll be focusing more on PyCharm. Maybe we'll go back to ID Elif for some code, or maybe command prompt, but majorly we'll be using PyCharm. In this video, we'll do something which you are waiting from a long time, and which is how to get the input from a user. See, trust me, when you are building a project, you are doing it for the client, right? And of course, you are expecting a client input. Until this point, we are working with our own numbers. We should be looking for the user input, right? How do we do that? So the thing is, in Python, whatever we have done till now is done with the help of functions. Example, if you want to print something, print function. If you want to do some calculation like finding the sum of the list or finding the minimum value of it, or maybe whatever function, whatever operations we have done till now, we have used functions, right? For input as well, we have an input function. The name itself says it, right? Now, so instead of using 5 here, of course we'll be adding 2 numbers, but then instead of using 5, we will be using a function called as input. Okay, it's very simple. And then for y as well, we will be saying input. So for x also we have input, for y also we have input. Now will it work? That's a question. I will try it. Okay, so I will right click here. I will say run my code. Okay, it works. You can see there's no error. Okay, first step is done, there's no error. But think about this. You got a console and you are waiting for something, because till this point we were just doing something and we were getting the output. This is the first time your console is not saying anything. The thing is, your console is waiting for you. I mean, now when I say you, I'm talking about the user. A console is waiting for the user to give the input. Now console don't know that, user don't know what to do now. So user doesn't know what to do. A console don't know that user is waiting. So a console should notify user, hey user, I'm expecting a value from you. And of course, console is not that smart to ask for it. So as a programmer, you need to do it. So I will stop the execution and I will say, hey user, enter the value. So of course, it's not compulsory, but then it's a good gesture, right? I will say enter first number. Okay, and the same thing goes for y. As I mentioned, it's not compulsory to type the message, but then it's always better. Enter second number. Okay, so we got enter first number, enter second number, and now I will rerun the code, right click, run, and you can see it is asking for the value. Now a user knows something is happening. So user will come here and so user will say, I want to add 9 and I want to enter 5. 9 plus 5 will give you 14, right? I will say enter. Oh, that's weird. We got 9 space 5. That's bad. The thing is, what is happening here is, if you have observed, I was also giving a space in between. Maybe that's the issue. I will run this again. And this time I will give a value which is 9 without space and 5 without space. This time at least we'll be getting 14, right? Hopefully. I will say enter. Oh, again we got 95. That's bad. What's wrong here? So when you want to work with a function called as input, it will always give you the string type. If you remember, we also have a type which is str. So it will always give you the value in str format. What you want is integer, right? Because you are adding 2 values. And if you want to add 2 values, it should be integer. Example, if I print the type of x in this case, of course after fetching the input, I will say run this code once again. You can see it is waiting for the input. I would say 9. The moment I say enter 9, you can see the type of 9 is str. It's integer, right? But the thing is, by default, input function will convert everything as a string. Now that means you need to convert this value before assigning the value. So what you can also do is you can take another variable like a, and you can convert the value of x into integer, because x is string. So you can say int and you can pass x, right? We have seen that. How do you convert from string to integer, or from different function to different function? So this is how you convert a string into integer. And then you can add, you can simply say instead of x, you can say a. And for y as well, the same thing, because y is also string. So I would say b is equal to int of y. Yeah, and now we'll say b. Now it should work. We are expecting a value which is 14. If this will not work, I will stop the video and run. Okay, so let's enter 9 and let's enter 5. Hopefully it will work. I will say enter. Oh, it worked finally. So you can still continue. You can still watch the video. So yeah, so it was 14, right? So it is working. So the issue was, by default, input gives you string format. We need to convert that into format which we want. Example, if you want float, simply use float function. If you want integer, you can use integer function. Okay, this works. But then don't you think we are wasting some lines of code here? Example, I could have used input here itself, I mean int here itself. Because say input gives you string. So we are converting that string into integer. So the type of x is now integer. So we don't need a there, right? So it's always better to save the number of lines. So here as well, I will say int, and this should work. Instead of a and b, I will say x plus y. Finally, it should work now without a and b, of course. That was our main agenda, right? Now it is asking for the value. This time I will go for some other values. 7 plus 3, it should give you 10, and it works. So this thing is working now. In fact, the same code which we are doing here on PyCharm will work on IDLE editor as well, okay? That works. So let's do something extra now. What I will do is, I want to take the input from a user in a char format. Because see, we don't have a char format in Python, right? We have int, we have float, we have string. How do we take a char? Example, we can do that actually. You can say x is equal to, or maybe this time we'll use ch because that makes sense. I want a character, right? So ch is equal to input. Of course, we don't need to convert that into integer because it's character. And you will say enter the character, enter the char. Now see, you can use double quotes or single quote, both works as you know. And then I will print ch. Yeah, this should work. Let's try. I will just run this code. We're waiting for the character. We'll use p, enter. It works. You can see we can take character as well. But here's a trick. The trick is, what if I enter PQR? Of course, right, I'm asking for a character, but or maybe your user don't know that you are expecting a character. Maybe by mistake user typing multiple characters. In this case, look at the output. We are expecting a character, user enters entire string, but we still want character, right? If you want to have that control to print only one character, you can use index values. We have done that, right? If you remember when we were talking about strings, we have done this. We can use index number and we can fetch first character. This should work. Let's try. I will say PQR and you can see we got P, right? This is fun. In fact, the next code is amazing, okay? It's more fun. What if I don't even, because in CH we still have PQR. What if you don't want PQR, you only want P? So we have a trick here. What if, while fetching the input only, you will specify that, hey, I only want the first character. See, input will fetch the entire string. Input will fetch PQR, but it will assign only P to CH. Let's try. I'll say PQR, enter, you can see that, you got P. So again, you can play with the codes, right? And that's why programming is awesome. There's a concept of syntax, plus there's also a concept of fun. So you just need to play with it. It's like playing a game with programming language. In fact, since we are working with input, we can do something extra. We can also use a function called as eval, which will evaluate the expression which you are passing. Example, let's say, if I give the input, let me just run this code. If I give the input as 2 plus 6 minus 2, or maybe 6 minus 1, can we do it? Can we do it here? Because see, when you pass 2 plus 6 minus 1, it is not normal integer. It is not normal string. It's something different, right? It's an expression. And to use that, of course, you got 2 here because we are fetching only first character. If you want to evaluate that, what I will do is I will say result. So there's a function called as eval. Of course, we will not be using index here. So there's a function called as eval. So in eval function, you are passing the data which you're getting from the user. So it's enter an expression, right? So when a user enters the expression, it will evaluate and it will give you the output. Let's do that here. I will print result. Let's try. I hope it will work. Okay, so now let's give the expression here. I will say 2 plus 6 minus 1. Enter. Yes, it's working. You can see we got 7. So that's the exciting thing about functions, you know. So in Python, we have so many functions to work with. Now, since we are talking about input, we can do something extra as well. What if you want to take the input from the command line? Now, when I say command line, let's go back to this code. If you remember this code here, we were running mycode.py, right? Where we have printed only hello world. Let's try once again. You can see there was some code. We are printing 11. But what if I want to pass a value from here? Example, I will say Python, and here I will enter mycode.py. Now the values in my code, let me just verify my code here. So this is my code, okay? So so I went to desktop, I opened this file which is my code, and you can see the values which is 5 and 6. If you want to take input from user, you can use input functions. But I want to pass the values when I'm running this. So if you see CMD here, when I'm running the code, I want to pass a value which is 6 and 2. I want to add these 2 numbers. Is it possible? Can you pass a value from here? Yes, you can. But are you accepting the value? No. So even if I run this code, you can see we got 11. So we should be changing this value. Instead of using 5, we can use a special keyword which is called as agrv. Now agrv will be having multiple values, not one, it will be a list. So example, if you are passing one value, it will be one value. If you are passing two values, it will be two values. If you are passing 10 values, it will be having 10 values. And if you want to access a particular value, you need to use index number. Okay. Now what index number? So index number 0 is a file name. So if I go back to my command prompt, you can see when I say Python and then after that I'm entering a file name. Now this is your index number 0. 6 is index number 1 and 2 is index number 2. So if you want to fetch it, you will be using argv and in a square bracket you will say this is 1. Why not 0? Because 0 is for file name, right? So we'll use 1 and 2. And now you can add these two values. Let's verify. Let's go back to our Python prompt and I will say enter. Oh, there is an error. It says argv is not defined. Okay, the thing is, it belongs to a module called as sys. So we have to say import sys and then we'll say sys.argv, sys.argv. Now it should work, hopefully. Go back to Python, enter. Oh, we got 6 and 2. Okay, the same problem. It will give you a string, right? So we have to convert that into int. My bad. But you learn from your mistakes. Let's go back and say enter. Oh, we got 8. Yeah, it's working. So that's how you work with input. So you can do whatever you want. Take the input and find the answer. And in this video, we'll talk about CPU. Oh, hold on. This is a Python series, right? Why we need to know about CPU? In fact, everyone knows about CPU, right? CPU has 3 parts, CU, MU, and ALU. We have worked with MU till this point because MU basically means memory unit. So we were using variables, we were trying to save data, so it was there. Then we have a unit which is ALU, which is in which we have 2 parts. One is AU, which is arithmetic unit, and the second one is logical unit. Now when it comes to arithmetic unit, it performs calculations, right? So whatever calculation we have done till now, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and binary conversion, of course. Now it's time to talk about logical unit. Now when you say logical unit, this is something which makes your computer think. Of course, your computer will not think automatically. As a programmer, you do it, right? You let your computer think. So you have to write a code, right? So in real world, when you say you are taking a decisions, what it means. So you apply different conditions, right? So example, in real life, we go with a flow. So example, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And then at certain point, we decide, okay, so either we have to go this way or that way. Example, even after completing your 10th standard, we have to decide which field you want to go for. After completing your graduation, you will decide which company to join, right? So we always take decisions based on certain conditions. Can we do that in programming? So in programming as well, we write statements, right? So we write one statement, second statement, third statement, and then we realize, okay, we have 2 flows now. Either we have to go this way or we have to go that way. And that's where you have to apply conditions. How will you implement that here? For that, we have a special keyword called as if, right? So we will be using if here. So using if, you can actually specify the flow of your execution. Either you have to go in this way or that way. I would also recommend you to learn about flowcharts. Of course, as a programmer, it's a good to know concept. If you know how flowchart works, it will be helpful for your programming career. So let's understand how this if works. So if you can see, we have 3 statements here, right? So after this 3 statement, we have 2 flow now. Either we want to execute this set of statements or I want to execute the other set of statements. How will you decide what statement you want to execute here? Based on some conditions, if this is true, I will execute the first block. If this is false, I will execute the second block. And to implement that, we use if. Now, if you talk about the syntax, this is how it looks like. So we have to use if, right? That's a keyword we have to use. And then we have to specify either true or false. Now, if you say this is true, then it will execute this statement. So if it is true, only then it will execute this statement, right? So let's say the statement is, I'm right. That's it. I want to print I'm right. So if it is true, it will print I'm right. That's it. Let's run this. And you can see we got the answer, which is I'm right. If this is false, then it will not execute the particular block. So if this is false, let me just run this code. And you can see it is not executing the block. So that's how your if works. If it is true, then only it will execute the block. But hold on. What is that block? And what is this colon? And what is this statement? So the thing is, whenever we use if is basically a block, and in Python we call them as a suite, where you can write multiple statements. But then how will you mention that this statement belongs to if? Because see, if I write one more statement here, I mean just below that, if I say print and if I say by, now what do you think? We are saying false, right? It is false. So will it execute by or not? If this print statement belongs to if, then it will not execute by because it is false. If this statement does not belong to if, then it will execute by, right? Let's try this. If I run this code, you can see we got by. But why by? It is saying false, right? It's because this statement does not belong to if. Why? It's because we have to follow certain indentation. How do you specify if the statement, because see, in if we can have multiple statements, right? So if you want to specify all the statements belongs to if, we need to use some certain indentation. And what is indentation? Some specific spaces. It can be 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 10 space, or it can be 100 spaces. You have to use certain number of spaces. So if I use 4 space here, for this one as well, I need to use 4 space. Even if I use 3 space, you can see it will give you error. Okay, so it says unintended does not match any other indentation level. So you have to make sure that it belongs to, you either use either 1 space, so you have to, throughout you have to use 1 space. If you use 2 space, throughout you have to use 2 space, okay? But normally, we always use 4 spaces, okay? Example, if I say, even if I say 3 spaces for both, then it will work, okay? There is no error. So you might get a warning by saying, you should be using 4 spaces. So it's better to always use 4 spaces. In fact, the tab, one tab is 4 space, right, by default. So I would also prefer to use tab instead of using spaces because you might make a mistake with spaces. So use 1 tab and that's fine. And if you are using an IDE, just say enter. By default, it will use the indentation. Okay, I don't want to keep by inside if, so I will write it outside somewhere here. Right, so this by doesn't belong to if block. But then question arises, we will not be writing true and false in a code itself, right? This true and false will evaluate from an expression, right? Of course, it is dependent upon user input, it's dependent upon the data in the database, it's dependent upon the data on the server. It's all dependent upon the value you are passing and the condition. So how will you do it here? Maybe I will try this. To understand this, let's take an example. Let's say I want to check if the given number is even or odd. Maybe the input is coming from the user, or I will take my own input. Let me take my own input and you can try it with the user input. I will take the number as 3, okay? If the number, so when you say even number, odd number, what it means, if the number gets divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, then it's an even number, right? If the remainder is not 0, which is 1 in this case, it will be odd number. How will I verify that? So what I will do is I will use a variable r, and I will save the remainder, which is either 0 or 1. So I will say x mod. Remember the symbol which we have used? Mod 2, right? So in R, it is either 0 or it is 1, right? So instead of using false, I want to check if my R is equal to 0. Because if my R is equal to 0, then it will print even, right? So if my R is equal to 0, that's an even number. Okay, that works. Let's try. I will run this code. Oh, okay, so that we got by. You know why we got by is because x is 3 and it's an odd number. Let's try with 8. 8 is an even number, right? Let's try this. We got the answer which is even and by. So yes, we got even number because that's an even number, and we got by because it should be printed anyway. This is how you work with if. So if this is true, okay, this is important. If this is true, then it will print even. If this is false, it will not execute the block. It will not execute the statement inside that if. How about 7? Of course, 7 is an odd number, right? I want to print even. If it is even, I want to print odd as well. We are not doing that at this point. Okay, how do I print odd? Because if I print odd outside the if block, I will say odd. The thing is, it will print odd anyway. Doesn't matter if your value is even or odd. Example, if I run this code, you can see we got odd in this case. And if the value is 8, then also it will print odd. I mean, it is printing even then odd as well. We don't want odd for even numbers, right? So I want to execute this one only when the number is odd. Okay, so that means I want to print this only when, so I will say if r is equal to 1. Okay, so we are doing that, right? So we are checking if r is 0, then print even. If r is 1, print odd. That works. Let's try. Oh, we got even because it's an even number. And I will try with 9. Let's say run. Oh, we got odd. So it is working. So 8 is even. It was working. 9 is odd. It's working. But don't you think if the number is even, okay, everything is working as of now, but there's a twist here. See, as a programmer, we also want to improve the performance, right? It's not just about writing code, it's not just about getting the output, it's about writing the efficient code. And this is not efficient. You know why? Because when you say your number is 8, and 8 is even, we know that, So it will check if R is 0, yes, it will print even, that's right. But then if the number is even, why you have to check this as well? Because it will go in the flow, right? Example, if I debug this application, let me just add a breakpoint here. If remember, we have done that before. I will say debug, and let's try F8. So you can see if I say F8, it is saying yes, R is 0. It will print even, and then I don't want to check for odd, right? Because it is even. So but still, it will check R for 1 as well. I don't want it to check for R is equal to 1 because it doesn't make any sense. It's an even number. So that means what I'm expecting here is, if it is checking for this number, if it is checking for even, if it is true, then it should not be checking this one. In that case, what you will do is, instead of saying R is equal to 1, you can say else. You know what else means? If it's true, then execute the block, otherwise go for the else block. If this is getting executed, it will not be when checking the else condition. Let me just prove my point. I will put a breakpoint here. I will say debug, right click, debug, and F8 for the flow. You can see R is 0, yes, it's going to even, and now it has skipped the else block. So this is how you improve the performance. So instead of using two if, we can use if and else. It works, right? So this is how you work with if else. Now, can I only use else? Of course not. Else comes with if. So you have to remember that. So you can write if or else instead of writing two ifs. Or there are certain conditions which are different from each other. It's not dependent. So of course you have to use two if there. Can I have if inside an if? Is it possible? Let's try. After printing even, I also want to check if the number is greater than 5, right? We can do that. So we can check if x is greater than 5, then I want to print something else. I want to print greater. That's it. I want to print great. That's it. I just want to print great. It doesn't make any sense, I know, printing great, but then the idea is we can have if inside an if. So this if will be checked only when this is true, right? So when you say if this is true, it will execute even, and then we are writing another if, and see the indentation. So this print great belongs to the second if, not the first if, right? So if this is true, then it will print even, then it will check for another condition, and then it will print great, right? So this is called as nested if, which is if inside the if. Now how do you know that this is inside the if? Because of indentation, right? We can have an entire tree of ifs, if inside the if and if inside the if. That works. For this one also we can write else. Now this else is a pairing with this if, not the above if, okay? And if I say print, I will say not so great, right? So what do you think? What is the output now? Of course, great, right? So let me just run this code, and you can see, oh, we got an error. Can you guess the error? That's right, you can see that error here, the error symbol. So we should be using a colon, my mistake there. So whenever you use if else, we have to provide a colon. Let's run this code, and it works. You can see we got even, great, and by. If the value is not greater than 5, if it is 3, let's run this code, and you can see we got odd and by. Because this is an odd number, it is not even going there, and then it is printing odd. So that works. So this is how you work with if and else. Let me add one more twist here. The twist is, in fact, not with this code. Let me just try one more code here. We also have a concept of if, elif, and else. Now what that means? Let's take an example here. If a user enters 1, I want to print O and E, which is 1 in what format. If a user says 2, I want to print 2. If a user says 3, I want to print 3. If a user says 4, I want to print 4. Let's do it here. I will take a random number. I will take 2, because it doesn't matter. Maybe you can take this input from the user. You can try that. I will check if, can I use round brackets? And the answer is yes. If you want to put the condition, you can put that condition in round brackets as well. Now what happens, if you are coming from other programming language like C, C++, Java, or C#, you have this tendency of using round brackets there. So in Python also you can use it. It's optional. You want to use it or not, that is your choice. What I'm talking about is this one. So if I can say if x is equal to 1, so instead of putting that open, you can also put that in a round bracket. But open looks cool. Let's use that. So we got x is equal to 1. In this case, I will print 1. So that's 1, right? And then we can check it for other numbers as well. We can say if x is equal to 2. In this case, we'll print. So when your x is equal to 2, then we can print 2, and we can do that for other statements as well. So let's try that for other values. So I will say, so this is how we can do it for other numbers, right? If I run this code, you can see it is printing 2. And if I change the value to, let's say, 4, it will print it will print 4. So it is working, right? Everything is working. But again, the same problem, right? What if the value is 1, and then when you run this code, don't you think it will print 1, of course, but it will check for every other number? In that case, if you don't want it to check with every other number, we can use, instead of using if, we can also use Elif. Now what does Elif means is, if this is not true, then only it will go for the next one. The same thing you can apply everywhere. You can say Elif and Elif. So Elif stands for else if. So if this is false, then only it will check other conditions. If I run this code, you can see we got 1. And if I put a breakpoint here, and if I run this code, in fact, we can simply debug it. And let's say F8. And you can see if this is true, it will directly jump outside. Okay, it is not going for further instructions. But if I say this is 3, or maybe let's go for 2, in this case, so if I debug it, let's trace it. So you can see it is going for the first statement. Since it is false, it will jump to Elif, right? Because the first one is false. And now this is true because the value is 2. It will execute 2, okay, and then it will come out. Yeah, so this is awesome, you know. Okay, what if the value is 5? Now this is not matching with anyone, right? It is not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, it's not 4. So see the jumping now. So if I debug, see the jumping, it's jumping to Elif, which is false, jumping to next Elif, which is also false, jumping to Elif, which is also false, and then it's come out. So in that case, we should be printing wrong input. But how will I print that? We can do that in else. If none of this matching, we can print wrong input. That's awesome, right? So this is how you can work with if, Elif, and else. This video will talk about loops. Now, what exactly loop means? Now, in programming, what you do is sometimes you need to repeat these statements. Example, let's say you have written 5 statements and maybe you want to repeat them. How will you repeat them? Of course, there is one way. You can copy paste the same code multiple times. Example, let's say I want to print, let me print Telusko. So I want to print Telusko once, and if I run this code, of course, it will print only once. What if I want to print Telusko 2 times? So what we can do is we can just copy paste it, right? So we are good with this. So I will copy paste it, and we got 2 Teluskos. And if I run this code, you can see we got 2 Telusko. That's working. What if I want to print Telusko 10 times? What you will do now? Of course, you can copy paste it 10 times. But don't you think you are doing manual work? What if I want to print 1000 times? So it will be difficult to do that, right? Now the best way to do it is applying a loop. What you can do here is you can say, hey Python, I want to repeat the same statement multiple times. To do that, we can use loops. And we can use 2 types of loops. One is called as while loop and second is called as for loop. Let's focus on while here. So we can use a while. So while is a keyword, and then you have to specify the condition. See, while will say, okay, my job is to repeat this statement multiple times, but then tell me for how much time you want to do that. I will say, okay, do it for 5 times. But how will I do that? So when you say you want to do it for 5 times, we count, right? We need a counter here. Example, if I say, hey, you, say hello 5 times. I'm talking to you here, okay? So say hello 5 times. What you will do is, in your mind, you will be saying hello once, okay, hello, second time, hello, hello, and hello. So you have a counter there, right? In the same way, we need a counter here. For that, I will be using a variable called as I, and I will say I starts with 1. And then every time, okay, first of all, you have to check, right? How will I check? If the value of I is less than equal to 5, okay, we have to apply a condition, right? So step 1 would be take a counter, a variable, which is I in this case, and check if the value of I is less than 5. And every time you print Telusko, just increment the value of I, right? So because you're doing it here, right? So you're saying hello, hello. So you're incrementing the value. So you will say I is equal to I plus 1. That's it. It's so simple. And remember the syntax. So we have to use a while, then we have to specify the condition and a colon. Now this colon specifier, whatever is coming ahead is a part of this block. And this to statement belongs to the same suit is because we are using a proper indentation here. And now let me just run this code, and you can see we got Telusko 5 times. So what is happening behind the scene? And how do I know that? It's very simple. So set the breakpoint, and now let's debug it. I love this thing, debugging. And then say F8. And you can see the value of I is 1. Okay, that's done. And then if I again say F8, it is printing Telusko once. And you can see that in the console. Okay, you can see that we got hello once. And if I go back to debug it again, the value of I now, so the moment I say F8, the value of I becomes 2. You can see the value of I is 2 now. and it will check if 2 is less than 5. Yes, it will go ahead and it will print Telusko. You can see if I go back to console, Telusko will print second time. And then if I say F8 again, you can see we got value of I is 3. Is 3 less than 5? Yes, it will go ahead, it will print. It will then try to print the statement which is Telusko, and you can see in the console we got Telusko 3 times. And now the value of I is 4, right? So you can see the value of I is 4. And then if I say F8, it will print Telusko 4th time. You can see that in console. If I switch back to there, you can see we got Telusko 4 times. And then the value of I now is 5, right? Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, you can see we have equal to there. The evaluation is also true. You can see that, the pop-up. If I say F8, Telusko, it will print Telusko 5th time. You can see we got 5th time. And if I go to debugger again, say F8, and you can see the value of I is 6. Now the value of I is 6, right? Is 6 less than or equal to 5? No, that's a false, right? You can see the pop-up which is false, and if I say F8 now, it will come out. And that's why you got 5 times Telusko, right? So this is how you can use while loop. Now 3 things are important here. First is the initialization, second is the condition, and third one is increment. Oh, can we do decrement here? Yes, we can do decrement as well. So you can do reverse, right? Sometimes we go in this way, hello, 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 hello. Or we can say, so let's say we will do reverse. Hello, 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 right? So we can do that as well. So we'll start with 5, and then we'll reverse the condition. We'll say I is greater than or equal to 1. And instead of saying I is equal to I plus 1, we'll say I is equal to I minus 1. We are going in reverse order. Let's run this code. It works. You can see we got 5 times hello. So we can go ascending or we can do descending, your choice. So there are 3 things important here. 1, assign the value, then condition, and then increment or decrement. Now let's say I don't want to print Telusko here. I want to print the value itself. Or maybe I want to print Telusko with the value. We can do that. So we can say space, comma, I want to print the value of I as well. Let's run this code, and you can see it is printing Telusko 5, Telusko 4, Telusko 3, Telusko 2, and Telusko 1. So you can do that. Okay, this is how you work with while loop. Now, can I use multiple whiles? I mean, while inside a while, you can do that. So we have done that before as well, right? Example, I will print Telusko once, and then while I'm printing Telusko once, I want to print Telusko rocks multiple times. I want to print Telusko rocks. I want to print rocks 5 times. So what I will do, I will say while. Oh, now I want to say 5 times. I have to use a different variable, right? And I will be using a variable here, which is j is equal to 1 again. We'll say j less than equal to 4. Let's say I want to print rocks 4 times. We'll give a colon and we'll say print rocks. That's cut. So it will print Telusko and then rocks 4 times. I don't want to print the value of I now, so it will print Telusko and rocks 4 times. So before executing this, you try to guess the output, okay? It's depend upon you now. You tell me what's the output. Okay, will it print Telusko rocks 4 times? See, Telusko itself will be getting printed 5 times, right? And then on every line you will get rocks 4 times. This is what you want, right? But if I run this code, oh, that's weird. It's not stopping anywhere. You know why it's not stopping? Because we forgot to increment the value of j. You know, you learn from mistakes. Let's run this code once again. And you can see we got Telusko rocks 4 times, and then again Telusko 4 times. That is not something which we want. What is going wrong here? Let's try to debug this, you know. So I will just say, hey, debug the application. Now you can see the value of I is 5. In fact, you know, just to make it more simple, let's go with 1. Let's go with increment so that it will be easier for understanding. Because once you understand the basic stuff, you can try it on your own. And remember this, we are using while inside a while, okay? So this is nested while loop. Let me just debug this by applying a breakpoint. Let me say F8, and you can see the value of I is 1. Remember these values. The value of j is 1. Is 1 less than 5? Yes. Let's go inside. It will print Telusko, of course, and you can see in the output console, we will be getting Telusko now. We got Telusko. Now what's the value of j? It's 1. 1 less than 4? Yes. It will go ahead. It will print rocks. It will execute this j equal to j plus 1. So now the value for j is 2. Okay, if I say F8, the value of j is 2. But look at the jump. It is not jumping outside. It's not jumping back to this loop. It is jumping back to the inner loop. Because first it will complete the inner loop, then it will go back to the outer loop. Right? It is something like, you know, we have 7 days a week and each day has 24 hours. Right? So you can imagine the number of days is the outer loop and the number of hours is the inner loop. right? So what it means, so let's say if you start with Sunday, Sunday has 24 hours. It will start with 0th hour, then 1 hour, 2nd hour, 3rd hour, 4th hour. Now when you complete the entire 24 hours, it will go for the new day, which is Monday in this case. On Monday as well, we have the same hours, right? 0th hour, 1th hour. So that means every time you change your day, it will restart the number of counting for your hours. So it will first complete the hours, right? So the same thing is happening here. So if I say F8 again, it prints rocks. It will increment the value of j to 3. And that's why you can see, if you see the output, we got 1 Telusko but 2 times rocks. Okay, so that works. In fact, we wanted this, right? We wanted 1 Telusko and 4 rocks. Okay, we'll do that. We'll think about that. If I run this, you can see we got rocks, and once it is getting completed, once the value of j it becomes 5, you can see that the value of j now is 5. If I run this again, it is false, and now it is focusing on I. So I value is 2 now. It went back there, and then again if I say F8, it will print Telusko, of course. But look at the value for j. J is 5. That's where things are going wrong. Now since j is 5, it is not continuing ahead. Oh, so that was a mistake. So to solve this problem, what we can do is, first we have to do 2 things. I want to print rocks on the same line, right? I don't want to print rocks on new line. So what we can do is, after Telusko, I can give a comma and say end is equal to double quotes. Now what it means, by default when you say print, it will print this statement and comes on new line. I don't want new line, I want to print on same line. Example here, if you see, it is printing Telusko and then it is coming on new line. I don't want that. I want it to print Telusko and stay on the same line. Same thing can be done for rocks. I would say, hey, don't go on new line, stay on the same line. Now I hope it will come on same line. If I say run, okay, so that we got everything on same line. Okay, we don't want that. We don't want all Telusko on same line. We want Telusko on new line. So after incrementing, I will say print. Because see, after completing 1 Telusko, I want to print on new line. So I will say run. You can see we got Telusko on new lines, but then rocks is coming only for 4 times here. What is going wrong? The value of j reached 5 here, right? So what I will do is, every time I start with the outer loop, I want to restart the value for j, which is 1. It's important. Every time, in fact, we should not be declaring the value here. Let's start here. Okay, so it will initialize here, check for the condition here, and then decrement here itself. Let's run this. This we want, right? So we got Telusko rocks. Now how it is working, let's again go for debug. We'll say debug and say F8. You can see the value of I is 1, I less than 5, yes, it's 1. It will print Telusko and it will not go on new line, okay? It will stay on the same line. Let me jump to console and you can see, if I say F8, Telusko on same line, okay, there's not jumping to next line. The value for j is 1. Is 1 less than 4? Yes, it will go ahead and it will print rocks. And you can see rocks on the same line. And then the value of j is getting incremented to 2 now. So you can see the value for j is 2 here. And then again it will come back, it will print rocks and it will go for j value which is 3. And then it will again, 3 is less than 4, it will print rocks, and then j value is 4. And then it will check, is 4 equal to 4? Yes, it will print rocks. And the value for j is now 5. Now 5 is not less than equal to 4, it will come out. But where? It will come out to this next statement, which is I is equal to I plus 1. Now in this case, I equal to I plus 1, it will increment the value for I. So it will make it 2. And then since we are printing, since we are doing print, it will come on new line. You can see the cursor now. Cursor is on new line. I will say, it will continue, okay? So it will do the same thing which we have done till now. So if I go fast, see that. See the sequence. So this is how your loops are working. Now see, since I'm doing this, I have worked on this for a long time, so I know how it works. Now if you're a fresher, you might find this thing difficult, but trust me, the only thing is this is not difficult, this is just unfamiliar. You just need to practice it. The more you practice this concept, it will make your concept very clear. Okay, so we'll be doing that. We'll be doing some more examples with this, printing the patterns like star, real stuff. So we'll do that in the further sessions. I hope you got some idea about while loop. In this video, we'll talk about for loop. So while loop and for loop, they both are loops, right? But then the working is different. In fact, normally when we talk about while loop, it is for certain iterations and it is for certain conditions. So if you remember the while loop, we specify a condition. But that's not the case with for loop, because in for loop, it normally works with sequence. What type of sequence I'm talking about? Think about list, think about tuple, think about string. So what I'm basically talking about is, let's say if you have a list here, and in this list, I have certain values. It can be any random value, let's say my name, Naveen, 65, and if I say, let's say 2.5. So these are, I have these values. One is string, one is integer, and one is float. Doesn't matter what type of value you have there. I want to print these values. It's very easy actually. You can simply say print and you can print the value of x. This will work. Okay, let me just run this code and you can see we got the output. But what if you want to get the output individually? I want to print the values one by one. So in this case, you will be using a for loop. Now how for loop works? So we have to say for, then we have to use a variable. We will say this time I. Now I represents one element of this list at a time. So example, initially I will refer to Naveen, then I will refer to 65, then I will refer to 2.5, one by one. So you have to say for I in x. So one by one, it will fetch the value. And again, this is a suite, so you have to use a colon there, and you can write lines of statements. Again, the point is, you need to make sure that you use a proper indentation. So I will be printing the value, that's it. I will be printing the value of I, that's it. So there is no iteration. Unlike while here, so we don't initialize the variable, we don't check the condition, and we don't increment or decrement by ourselves. It will be done by for loop itself. This is pretty smart, right? So now if I run this code, you can see we got the values one by one. So yes, if you want to print all the values from a list, use for loop. So for loop normally can be used with sequence, example list which we have worked with now, or a string. Let's say you have a string here. Let's say the x is not a list now, it is a simple string which is Naveen. And then I want to print the value of this one by one. So one way is you can use an array, right? So we can use a while loop here as well. And then you can use that square bracket, you can specify index values. Otherwise, if you run this code, you can see this is how your for loop works. So what it will do, the value of I first will have n, and then it will have a. Let me just do that again, the thing which we are doing from a long time, which is debug. So I click and say debug. Let's trace it. So if I trace, you can see the value of x is Naveen, and the value of I is n now. Again, if I repeat, if I say next iteration, you can see the value of I will become a, and the next iteration, the value of I becomes v, the value of I becomes I, and then value of I becomes n. So that's Naveen for you. And we are printing all the values, right? So if I see the console, you got all the values one by one. Right? Of course, I forgot to do one more. So you got Naveen there. So that's the advantage of using for loop. Okay, can I use for loop with something else? Yes, we can. Example, we can also use this with tuple, or we can use with set. But then we have one more. Example, you can specify the list here itself. Okay, instead of having a different variable, you can have your list here. Even that works. Yeah, so you have 2, 6, Paul, and if I run this code, you can see we got one by one. So you can have your list there itself. So syntax is you mention for, then you say I in, and then you mention the collection or the sequence. It can be a list, it can be a string, everything works. In fact, what if I want to print the values from 1 to 10? Because of course, right, we can do that. We can do that in while loop. Can we do it here? And the answer is yes. For that, we have to use a range. If you remember, in sequence, we have talked about range. In range, if you specify 10, what it means start from 0 and end at 9. So in total, we have 10 values. And if I run this code, you can see we got 0 to 9. So we got 0 and then it ends at 9. So in total, we have 10 values. So we can use range as well. And using this range, you can perform certain operations. In fact, in range, you can actually start from different value. Let's say I don't want to print from 0 to 10. I want to print from, let's say, 11 to 20. In that case, you will say, hey, I want to start from 11. I want to end at 20. So we want 20 included, right? So we'll say 21. And every iteration will have 1. So it will be 1 by 1 iteration. So if I say run, so you can see we got values from 11 to 20. So you have to mention 3 things: starting point, ending point, and the iteration. It will be, difference would be 1 or 2. Example, if I say this is 2 in this case, so look at the values now. It will be different values: 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19. So there's a difference of 2. If I say 5, you can see we got 11 and 16, that's it. So this is how you specify the gap there. What if you want to print in reverse? Let's try. Can I start with 20 and if I end at 11? If I run this code, it will give you, it is giving you nothing because it always goes in ascending order. We have to mention go in reverse order. So you have to say -1. So it will start from 20 and then 19, 18, and it works in that way. So you can see we got from 20 to 12. Now there's a problem. You have to make sure that it goes till 11, right? So you have to, because the value 11 is excluded. So we have to use 10 so that it will include 11. Let's run this again. And it works. So this is how you can use range, and this is how you can use for loop. Now in fact we can do one more thing. So you can see we have a range of 20 and then I'm printing the value of I. In fact I will start with 1. So I want from 1 to 20, so I will make sure it is 21 so that it will include 20. And the iteration would be 1, or even if you don't mention that, that's fine. If I print the value, you can see it is 1 to 20. What I want is, so every time the value which is divisible by 5, it should not get printed. Okay, so I want that. So I want to print only when the value is not divisible by 5. So we can use if inside for, right? So we can do that. So we can have if condition inside for if you want to have that condition. So you can say if I mod 5 is equal to 0, don't print. Otherwise you can print. Okay, but how can I do that? So what we can do is we can say not equal to. So print only when it's not equal to, right? So we can do that. So print only when it is not equal to. So if I run this code, if I say run, oh, we got an error because I missed something. And I'm also using brackets because I have this habit of working on Java. So anyway, it's optional in Python. So let's run this. And you can see we got 1 and we got 4. You can see we don't have 5 there because we are checking for the condition. So yes, we can write if inside a for. So since we had if inside for, we can also have for inside a for, which is a nested for loop. Till this point we have talked about loops, right? We have talked about for loop and while loop. In this video we'll talk about 3 keywords: break, continue and pass. Again, why do we need that? Let's say in the code itself. So let's design a vending machine. Of course, not a physical machine here. Let's write a simple code just to mimic vending machine here. So what we'll do is, if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you have to give 5 candies, not a physically candies, but then we'll write only candies. So print candies. Okay. So if I say 1 candy, it's 1 time. So if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you will print candies 5 times. So that's what we want to do. So let's try it here. So first of all, we need a variable and we'll say x, and the value for this variable will be coming from user input. So we'll say int input, and in this bracket you will mention how many candies you want. Okay, once you got this statement, what I want to do is I want to print candies, right? So if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you will print candy 5 times. If you want to do something multiple times, you will simply use a loop. So we'll use a while loop here. Again, you can use for loop, that's your choice, okay? But I love for while loop here. So I will take a variable which is increment variable. I will say I is equal to 1, and then we'll use a while loop here, and we'll say if I less than equal to x, because depending upon the number of value a user is entering, will go for so many candies. And every time this loop runs, you will print candy. That's what we want to do here, right? And then after every statement, we need to also increment it. In fact, we can, so if you can write I equal to I plus 1, or you can use a shortcut here, which is I plus equal to 1, because we have seen that, right? So instead of saying I equal to I plus 1, we can also use I plus equal to 1, shortcut for the same thing. Now this should work, right? So this should work. Let's try. So if I run this code, you can see it is asking for the number of candies. I would say 4 candies, enter, you got candy 4 times. That means you're getting candies from the machine. And I will just run this code once again. This time I will go for, let's say, 8. And you can see we got candy 8 times, so it is working. Now here is a twist. The twist is, what if a user says, hey, I want 100 candies, okay? And then in your machine, in the vending machine, we don't have 100 candies. You have, let's say, 50 candies, or maybe 80 candies. So what you will do now, you have 2 choices. You can stop the transaction. You can say, hey user, we don't have so many candies. Or what you can do is you can give 80 candies and you can say, hey, we are out of stock, right? Can you do it here? So I want to do that here. So the available candies, I would say, I will use a variable called as AV, which is available candies. And let's say in my machine, I have only 10 candies, okay? If a user says 5 candies, no issue, you can take 5 candies. Example, if I run this code now, and if a user says, hey, I want 10 candies, that's completely fine. We have 10 candies. But if a user says, hey, I want 20 candies, we don't have that much, right? So what you will do here? So in that case, before printing candies, what we can do is, so here we can check if the value of I, because see, if you have 10 candies and if a user says we want 20 candies, what you can do is you can give 10 candies, right? So the value of I is important here. So if the value of I is greater than your number of available candies, which is AV, in that case you will stop the execution. Oh, we forgot 1 colon there. So we need to stop the execution. But which execution? Not the entire code execution, because maybe at the end of your code, outside your while loop, I want to print by. So I don't want to stop the execution, because you can do that by saying exit or something. I don't want to end the execution of the code. I just want to come out of while loop. And the way you can do that is by using a statement called as break. The moment you say break, it means, hey, just jump out of the loop, right? So let me just run this code, and you can see it is saying how many candies you want. I would say I want 5 candies, no issue, you got 5 candies and you got by as well. It should be get lost, right? Okay, so if I say 11 candies now, and you can see we got how many candies here. So we got 1. In fact, let me just reduce the number because it is difficult to count. We don't have much time. So I would say I want 6 candies, and see how many candies you got. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total number of candies available is 5, but then a user says I want 6 candies. What you will get is only 6 candies, right? So this thing is important. So this is how you can just jump out of the loop. So there are so many applications of this break statement. You can use it in your applications, but then this is how it works. So if you want to just jump out of the block, you can simply use break. In fact, if you wanted to print a message by saying, hey, we are out of stock, you can do that here. So you can say print out of stock. And now if you run this code, let's say I want 8 candies. You can see after printing 5 candies, it's saying out of stock. This is what happens when you buy something, buy a new phone online. We have this open sale. So some people can buy it and then it says out of stock. Anyway, so this is how your break statement works. The next statement we have is continue. So the question is, so in the last video I have given you the assignment, which is you need to print numbers from 1 to 100 or 1 to 20, but then don't print the values which are divisible by 3 or 5. Okay, so you have to skip those values. So basically what I want is I want to print 1, 2, 3. I want to print 1, 2. I don't want to print 3. Then because it's divisible by 3. I want to print 4. I don't want to print 5 because it's divisible by 5. I don't want to print 6 because it is divisible by 3. I want to print 7, 8. Then I will not print 9 because it is divisible by 3. Okay, so I want to skip those numbers. How can we do that here? Of course, we'll shorten the code. We'll not be focusing on 5, only focus on 3, okay? So I want to print all the values from 1 to 100, but then I want to skip those values which are divisible by 3. And to do that, what I will do is I will write a code, and this time we'll go for loop, okay? We can go for while loop or for loop, your choice. I will say for I in, and then we'll use a range here, and I will go till 101 because that's what I want to go for. I don't want to print 0, so let me start with 1. Okay, so that's my for loop, and then I just want to print the value of I. Now what will happen? It will print all the values. It will print the values from 1 to 100. Let's check it out. So let's say run, and you can see we got all the values. But I don't want to print all the values, right? I don't want to print the value which is divisible by 3. In that case, what I will do is I will say if my I value, which is I mod 3, is equal to 0. Okay, let's not use round brackets there. If this is equal to 0, in that case, I just want to skip the remaining statements. Okay, when I say remaining statement, I don't want to skip the statement outside the loop. Example, if I say at the end, it's a good idea to print by at the end because at least you will know what is happening. So what will happen now is when you say for I in range 1 to 100, every time you say if it is 3, in that case, I don't want to print I just want it to continue with the loop. Let me just run this code for you. Oh, we got an error. What's wrong? Oh, we are missing one thing, right? Now, how will you continue? So you have to say a statement which is continue. So continue will skip the remaining stuff. So if I run this code, and you can see we got all the values, and look at the output now. We got 1, 2, there's no 3 because it is divisible by 3. We don't have 6, again, we don't have 9, we don't have 12. So this is how you work with continue. So what continue will do, it will skip the further execution. If you say continue, it will not jump out of the loop. It will only skip the remaining statements. In fact, in the assignment, what we have done is, so in the assignment question, it was 3 or 5, right? So we can say or, we have to use a or symbol here. So we have to say or I mod 5 is equal to 0, right? So now it will skip all the values which are divisible by 3 or 5. So you can see we don't have 3, we don't have 5, we don't have 9, we don't have 10, right? So this is how it works. In fact, we can also do it for and. So only skip those values which are divisible by 3 and 5. Example, 15, right? So we have 30, so all these values. So if I run this code once again, and you can see it will skip only those values which are divisible by both. In this case, it is 15. You can see we don't have 15. So that's how you can practice, So we have continue here. It works, right? So the next one we have is pass. Now when you will use pass, so just imagine we want to print 1 to 100, okay? So I want to print all the values, but then I don't want to print those values which are, let's say, odd numbers. Okay, again, we are going for a very simple example. I don't want to print values which are odd numbers. So my condition here is don't print odd numbers. See, I'm not thinking about even, I'm thinking only on odd numbers. So my logic here is on odd. How do I check odd? So we'll say I want to print the value of I, but it should not be an odd number. So in that case, my condition is only on odd. So I want to print in else condition. So I will say in else you have to print this. So if I mod 2 is not equal to 0, then don't do it, but only if it is in the else condition I want to print it. Right? That's what I'm trying to do here. Now I know you will be saying, what if you simply use even, if you check for even and print it? But imagine if you have a scenario where you are checking for the odd values. You're not focusing on even, you're focusing on odd. In that case, I want to print it in else part. But then you can see it will not work. You can see it is giving you an error. You cannot simply put an if as an empty block, right? So in that case, you will say, hey, I don't have anything here, I'm typing pass. So pass simply means, hey, there's no code, ignore it, right? So just pass the if block. In fact, in other languages like C, C++, we have curly brackets, so we can fill it up. But unfortunately, we don't use curly brackets here, so we have to use pass. So if I run this code, you can see we got all the values, all even numbers. Oh, we got all the values which are not odd, okay? So just rephrasing the point. So that's how we use break, continue, and pass. Now to this point, we have talked about loops, while loop, for loop, and then with those beautiful keywords. And in this video, we'll draw some patterns, okay? Normally, if you are in college or if you are learning a programming, this is important because it will improve the way you think. Programming is all about solving a problem, right? So you have to understand the problem statement and you have to put that in a code. So mentally in your mind, you'll be having those solutions ready, but that will be in an abstract format. You have to implement that on your machine with the help of code. So what we'll do is we'll try to do some patterns so that it will improve the way you think about logic. So what we'll do is initially we'll do this. In fact, yeah, I know this is the assignment question you had in the last video. So we want to print this pattern. Of course, everyone have their own way of doing this. And what you can also simply do is you can print this multiple times, right? So I want to print this. So what I will do is I will simply, so if you want to do that, it's very simple. Just print hash 4 times, and then you can do the same. Okay, let me just do that here. Okay, and then you can, so by doing this, you can see we got 4 hash, right? So at least we got the first stuff. But then what if I say you cannot use, you can only use 1 hash in 1 print? Of course, you can draw the entire box using 4 print statement. But let's say if you want to print only 1 hash within 1 print. So what I want is, I don't want to have multiple hash here. I just want to have 1 hash. Because if I run this code now, you can see we got 1 hash. I want to do at least, so we'll first complete the first row. Now if you can see we have 4 rows and 4 columns, right? So let's complete the first row. Now, if you want to complete the first row, you will print this multiple times, or you will write print 4 times. Okay, let's do that. So I will just copy it, and we'll paste it here, we'll paste it here, we'll paste it here. So we got 4 prints, right? And if I run this code, oh, we got 4 hash, but then we want it in row format, right? Not in vertical format. I want horizontal format. So what is happening here is after every print, it is coming on new line. So solution would be, we can give a comma and say, hey, don't just come on new line. So we can say end and double quotes. We can do the same thing for all the statement. Let me just do it here. And now if I run this code, you can see we got 4 hash in 1 line. So this is what we got. We got the first block. Now what I want is, I want 4 blocks, right? In fact, there is one problem with this code as well. We are writing the same statement 4 times. Don't you think it is weird? So the best option here would be, I want to do the same thing multiple times, right? So we can use a loop. And I will be using a loop here, which is a for loop. So I will say for, we'll use j in. You can use any variable name, right? We have discussed about that, but let's use j here. So for j in, I want to have a range of, let's say, 4. Now when you say range of 4, it will start from 0 and it will end at 3, right? I will give a colon. And now if you run this, you got the same output, right? So instead of typing 4 times, we can just use a loop. Let's say, so we got first row, right? I want the second row as well. So we can just copy this code because this will generate the second row, paste. So we are writing a for loop 2 times. So one for loop for first row and second for loop for second row. And if I run this code now, you can see we got 8 hash, but then in 1 line. The thing is, we need to make sure that before second for loop, I want to come on new line, right? Let's run this. Oh, we got it. So we got 4 rows, or 2 rows on 4 columns. Okay, this works. In fact, if I do the same thing for 3rd time, we will need print as well, the new line, so that will come on new line, right? So if I run this code, you can see we got 3 times. If I do the same thing, we got 4 times. But then there's an issue here. Don't you think we are doing same thing repeatedly? And when we know that if you want to do the same thing repeatedly, we'll do it only once, but then we will use a loop again. So the entire block, let me just give a tab, the entire block will come under another loop, which is, in this case, I use a for loop I in range of 4. So the entire block is a part of the another loop, right? So if I run this code now, look at this, it's so simple, right? So this is how you learn about programming, this is how you learn about different logic. So what we are doing is we are printing hash but multiple times. In total, we are printing hash 16 times. You can see this loop runs 16 times. Let me just do it. So apply the breakpoint here. Also debug, and let's iterate. We'll say f8. You can see the value of I is 0, the value of j is 0, and then it will print hash. And you can see in the console we got the value 1 hash. Then the same loop will iterate. So the value of j becomes 1, it will print hash. The value of j becomes 2, it will print hash. The value of j becomes 3, it will print hash. And now this is the 4th time, right? So it will go for, we got the 4th hash. Now it will jump outside the loop, and in fact it will come on new line first. You can see it will jump to new line now, and then the value of I becomes 1, yeah, and then the j value becomes 0 to, again it will start from 0 to 3. That's how it goes, and then we got 4 hash, and then it will send new line, and then it will jump up. So this is how thing works, right? It's so simple. Okay, now once we have done this, what if I want this pattern now? So in this you can see we don't have the perfect square, we have a triangle shape, right? So how will I do triangle? Now if you concentrate here, look at the number of rows and columns. Because in the earlier version where we have the entire box, we were having 4 rows and 4 columns. So we can say this j represents the number of columns you have, and I represents the number of rows you have, right? Because j is responsible to print the column at the end. So now here in the triangle you can see the number of columns in a particular row is dependent upon the row number. Right, so in the first row we have only 1 hash. In the second row we have 2 hash, right? So the number of hash is dependent upon the row number, right? So what you can do is you can control this range. So you have to say, hey, don't go till 4, because if you go till 4, it will print 4 hash. I want to go till I. Okay, so I will go till I. If I run this code, oh, we got a triangle. Okay, because now we are not going at the end, we are going only till I. So when the value of I is 0, you can see it is not printing any hash. This is output for that. When your I value is 1, it is printing 1 hash. When the value of I is 2, it is printing 2 hash, right? But then this is something weird, okay? We wanted 4 hash at the end. The problem is the value of I starts with 0, right? So we will go for 1. So it should be I plus 1. So when your I value is 0, it is actually first I want 1. So you can see we got 4 hash now. This is what we wanted. So this was the earlier pattern we had, and now I want to go for the next pattern, which is this one. Now you can see this is also triangle, but in another way. What is different here is I'm printing the same triangle but in reverse order, right? The number of rows, okay, so in the first row we have 4, in the second row we have 3, in the third row we have 2, and then it ends with 1. That means as your row number increases, your number of hash decreases, right? So what if you can say 4 minus I. Now you'll be thinking, what is this? Think about this. When your I value is 0, in that case, the j will go till 4, right? It will print 4 hash. When your I value is 2, the value for j will be 3, right? So it will print 3 hash. So depending upon your I value, it is printing those number of hash, right? So if I run this code, you can see this is what you got, right? So this is how thing works here. So this is how the another pattern we have worked with. I hope you're enjoying this series. Let me know in the comment section, and do subscribe for further videos.